6:12. We're going to go ahead and reconvene back into open session. F, announcement of actions taken in closed session.
In closed session today, the board voted to approve a reassignment of Jaime Santos to the position of principal of Rockwood Elementary, effective on September 17, 2018. The motion was made by Member Alvarado, seconded by Member Calderon Jr. with a roll call vote. Voting for approval were members Alvarado, Calderon Jr., Romero, and Castillo. Also in closed session today, the board voted to approve the reassignment of Myra Molina to the position of principal of Cesar Chavez Elementary, effective on September 17, 2018. The motion was made by Member Romero, seconded by Member Castillo, with a roll call vote by the board. Members voting as follows. Voting for approval were members Castillo, Romero, and Alvarado. Abstain was Member Calderon Jr. And Mr. Calderon arrived in closed session at 5:38.
Thank you. G, any comments from the public? Moving on to H. H2, recognition of John Renison.
Good evening, trustees. Good evening, community. So I'd like to recognize, first of all, Mr. John Renison, our County Board Supervisor, for being here for District 1. And I also want to recognize Mr. John Gay, who's here from the Public Works, as he's the director. We want to acknowledge and recognize Mr. John Renison for the following reasons. He's been instrumental in helping us with a pathway over at Enrique Camarena Junior High School. And so at that school site, one of the concerns that we've had for a long time is that there is no sidewalk. And whenever it rains, for example, the students would need to go through the street, which is the only graveled area, so they wouldn't get muddy, they wouldn't get wet. And so with the assistance of Mr. Renison and Mr. John Gay, they've been instrumental in donating material in order for our staff here to be able to build a pathway. And so now if you go to Enrique Camarena Junior High School, there's a very nice pathway, and now we can't wait for the first rain to come in. And I'm sure that our students will be nice and dry and safe because they won't have to be competing with the street to access the school site. And so that's one of the projects Mr. John Renison has been very instrumental in helping us with. The other one is we've had a lot of issues. We've discussed it here with the board as well at CM Perry and Highway 98. And a lot of those concerns there has been the safety of our students and also of the community as well. So with the assistance of Mr. Renison, he was able to bring Caltrans in. And one of the things that they're working on is working on the speed back signs. And the other thing that we had been requesting for a long time, but we knew it was not possible because of Caltrans and their policies and whatever criteria they have set. But what will be installed there at corner of CM Perry and Highway 98 is going to be a rapid flashing beacon. And so again, that's thanks to the assistance and help of Mr. John Renison. And so for that, Mr. John Renison, if you can please come up, we'd like to recognize you. Let's give him a round of applause. Absolutely.
Once we got the gravel approved and through Mr. Gates' department, we're able to go out there and do it, we got it, and we're really glad to do it. So I respect what the school district's done. I'm a Calexico product of the high school, and I'm very proud of it as well as San Diego State. And I'm here to stay, I'm not going anywhere, and so I was more than happy and proud to be able to do that. And thanks to Mr. Gay and his assistance.
Thank you.
John,
Thank you.
would you say something?
Sure. I would say this, gravel is the first step. Last night I was in, the Heber community, and we were able to, submit 3 after the transportation, program grants that are competitive for sidewalks, specific for the school, children that live and walk to school. So our hope is that we're competitive. And, my department is here to help and submit any type of grants you would need potentially for, any of your school sites, that probably Brigham County area, and I think, Keene County is one of those schools. And so, we won't stop. So please come to us and let us know.
We're not done. We're not done.
Well, thank you again. Thank you again for all your efforts in making our kids safe. Thank you.
Yeah. Wrong picture? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to everybody here at the school district. Have a lot of respect. Thank you very much.
Once again, congratulations and thank you so much. I, consent agenda. All items appearing will be acted upon by one motion without discussion unless any item is pulled for separate consideration and action.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda?
I'll second that. The motion by Mr. Castillo, second by myself. Alvarado, all those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon, Calderon Junior, Castillo, myself. Moving on to J, information items. J1, superintendent's report.
All right, so, testing, all right. So I want to welcome everybody back. We had our first day of school on Monday, August the 27th. So I just want to report that the start of the school year has been very smooth. I had an opportunity. It's okay. Thought I was losing my voice again, but no, I'm good. So I had an opportunity to visit all of the sites and, visited classrooms as well the first week of school. And kudos, to all of our staff for doing such an amazing job of setting up and getting classrooms ready, getting the sites ready, because they were definitely a showcase and definitely ready for our students. And so walked into classrooms, saw a lot of engagement, incredibly positive, just great energy. So we're looking forward to having a great school year. And so I can't wait to report back about the wonderful things that we'll be doing this year. Back to school night was held at our elementary schools, all of our elementary schools yesterday. I was able to visit Cesar Chavez, Jefferson, Maines, and Blanche Charles. I wasn't able to make it to all of them, but I was able to make it to these schools. And again, the classrooms I visited were excellent. We had staff from district office attend all the different sites, and the report was that, it was so well attended. And just the staff was excellent. Teachers were amazing. And so nothing but great things to report from our back-to-school night. We went to Tustin to visit Tustin Unified School District on Friday, September 7th. Trustee Calderon Jr. and Trustee Calderon went with a group of our administrative team here at the district and site techs, as well as myself. So we got to tour their technology program. And we did receive a very warm welcome by Dr. Franklin, who's the superintendent at Tustin, and the staff. And we were able to visit Tustin High School, Pioneer Middle School, Tustin Ranch Elementary, and their IT center at Beckman High School. And, the trip provided an amazing insight in regards to their instructional programs, how they're structured in a very comprehensive way to ensure that their students are using technology one-on-one, either it be through iPads, either it be through computers, and so laptops. So one of the things that we're excited about is working with a team and just planning to see how we can implement some of those innovative ideas that we saw in Tustin. So it was a great, amazing trip. One of the other items that I wanted to report on is school safety. We did send out a letter home this week to our teachers, to our parents, and to our students, just outlining, the different safety goals that we've had in the 17-18 school year, what we've accomplished, and then what we're looking to accomplish for the 18-19 school year. Just to highlight some of them, just as a recap for the community. Our Catapult emergency response system is in place and getting better. We have our Raptor visiting check-in system at all of our different school sites. We have an addition of a school resource officer, which we also have on the agenda for tonight, the addition of a second school resource officer for the district. We're also using the utilization of the bullying, victimizing, and school violence grant that we have in place. We've added additional counselors at the different school sites, and we've definitely done a really good job of updating all of our school safety plans. And those are some of the things that we have in place. Some of the things that we'll be working on for the 18-19 school year are the operation of the active shooter drills at all of our sites with the assistance of the Calexico Police Department and Fire Department, beginning with the Calexico High School. And continuing to update and communicate our site plans for reunification, and then continue evaluating and repairing door locking systems at all our school sites, just to name a few. But I just wanted to give an update that we do continue to prioritize safety at our different school sites. Just some upcoming events. Back to school night for our junior high schools will be on Wednesday the 19th, 6 p.m. And then back to school night at Calexico High School on Tuesday the 25th, 5:30 p.m. and back to school night at Aurora, Tuesday the 25th at 6 p.m. So that's all.
J2, Measure V update. No one. J3, association comments, ACT.
Good evening. Good evening, members of the board and members of the public. The real audience for this speech is here, but some of them are not here. And you'll see what I mean in a moment. So tonight is the first board meeting since our students have come back to our classes, and I'm excited to begin this new semester with a message of hope and encouragement for our district. I'd like to focus on an idea that I believe would aid all educators in Calexico. And it's an idea born from my own experience as a teacher, as well as feedback from members of my union. And it involves positions that our school board members have a direct impact on. So tonight I'd like to talk about administration, specifically site administration, and the promise they hold for our district and our educators. So when I first started teaching here in Calexico back in 2004, I joined the team at Dienza Junior High School with 7 other new teachers. I had the intention of gaining a couple of years of experience here and then moving on to somewhere more temperate, somewhere I could earn more money and have more options. This type of intention was not unique to me. Out of the 8 teachers I started with, there are only a few of us left here in Calexico. Anyway, things didn't work out exactly the way I thought they would. A few things happened that have led me to this, my 15th year with Calexico Unified. First, I met my future wife, and I don't think anyone would have the patience for me turning this speech into a love letter for her, so I'm going to move on. Second, the students I had were and continue to be exceptional human beings who make me want to do a better job than I ever thought I could. And finally, and this is the matter that I want to focus on tonight, I had a supportive and inspiring principal. Rebecca Ayala Rodriguez was a mentor to me. She was a person I could talk to and confide in without fear of reprisal. She listened to ideas I had and gave honest advice. She evaluated me professionally and through the lens of someone who wanted to foster the practice of teaching in me, a brand new teacher. She was a colleague more than a boss, and as time went on, she became a friend. So when those 2 years were over, high among the list of reasons I had for staying in Calexico was a sense of loyalty that I had for my principal. I wanted to be a teacher at her school. It wasn't that I wanted to be a teacher for Calexico Unified. I wanted to be a teacher at De Anza because she made it a place where I could grow in my profession. We need our site administrators to be more than just bosses. We need our administrators to be role models for our students and for our teachers. We need our administrators to be mentors and voices of not only administrative authority, but educational and instructional authority as well. We need our administrators to be understanding, to be people our teachers feel they can turn to without being afraid of getting written up. And I'm not saying we don't have this at some of our sites. We have this at many of our sites. Most of our administrators are doing a great job. But I am saying that we don't have this at all of our sites, but we need to. If we don't have leaders who inspire loyalty and positivity in our schools, we're going to continue losing our educators. And believe me, I acknowledge that being an administrator can be thankless. They have to make hard decisions. They have to deny people's requests even when they don't want to. They have to step into tough situations and try to make the best of them. But what I'm trying to get at is at the end of the day, it may very well be the principal of a school who leads an educator to stay with Calexico or to leave Calexico. As the president of the teachers union, I've been made aware of some practices that I think deserve reflection and improvement. First, I think our principals need to be knowledgeable when it comes to the contract the district has with us, the educators of Calexico. That way, there's no chance that our rights will be denied, or at least a smaller chance. I think that when principals tell teachers they have to do job-related duties on their own time, you have to consider what that really means for us and why we may take offense. We already spend our own time working on lesson plans, grading homework, and otherwise working for our students in our schools. I think that our administrators need to understand that in our evaluation tool, we have no mark for excellence. The best a teacher can get is an S for satisfactory, and that when you give a teacher an N or a U, it's a big deal. It costs us employment opportunities within our district and outside of our district, and too often those N's and U's are not accompanied by any sense of support to help make struggling teachers better. This isn't how you keep us here. I'm not saying that you should ignore problems and just give us all S's. I'm saying that when there is a problem, don't wait until the last hour of the last day to give us our evaluation. We're counting on you to help us, and that kind of thing won't help anybody, and that kind of thing happens. We, the educators of Calexico, are counting on you, the administrators, to have our best interests and thus our students' best interest in mind. We're counting on you to help keep our best educators here for the students of Calexico. And for the school board and district administration, when you have vacancies for administrators, please try to hire people with good experience. And when it's impossible to find experienced administrators, find candidates with impeccable educational records. And involve your educators in the process as much as possible. I'm also asking the school board to continue listening to your educators. When you have questions about how things are going at our sites, talk to your principals, but also talk to your teachers, your school psychologists, your counselors. We all have our perspectives, and our perspectives are valuable. Our year is just starting. We will have our struggles and our victories, but we need to work together as colleagues toward making our schools the best places for our kids and also making our schools the best places for our educators. And that's what I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. CSEA. J4 ROP Committee.
For ROP, again, as we're starting off the school year, so is ROP and their programs. I know the ROP program staff have gone to some school sites at the beginning of the school year, visiting high school Aurora, introducing their new career specialists that'll be working with the students, also talking to the administrators as they can, understanding that the first week of school is chaotic and busy everywhere. But they did want to go and meet staff. They met a couple students, teachers in their classrooms, so that was trying to kick off the year on a positive note. I know they're trying to work with the district, or are working with the district, with Ms. Montaño, Ms. Williams, looking at scheduling meetings so they can collaborate and partner on the activities for the year. Also looking at meetings maybe every other month, and also meeting with the CTE teachers as well. Trying to schedule those for the PLCs and their structure for the year. New this year, and I'll share this with the board. These are the new CTE students that are placed at the high school. So you have their names, information. I know that they're continue to work with Aurora, with Mr. Moreno, looking at CT courses, or perhaps the new fire science course if that gets on its way. Working with students on their career locker, their career assessments, and certainly with the ag programs as these start getting busier. Pass out a couple events happening. One is the regional committee meeting, where they're welcoming staff and teachers participating in these. Second one, the workshops. So one of the workshops they're having is it's called COLT, Career Assessment, Career Technical Leadership.
Can we put them on the,
Yeah, and there's extra handouts. We'll pass them in the end.
no, but we can put them out.
Yeah. Let me see. Let's take those down. We can display them. The extra ones we'll leave in the front there for those that are interested. So there's this something called COLT,
Thank you.
Career Officers Leadership Training. And the idea here is they are working and inviting different career student groups, student leaders, clubs, like your Future Business Leaders of America or Skills USA. They're inviting students here to participate in leadership development. The work flyer, next flyer, talks about that. That's coming around. I know several of the teachers, or some of the teachers in Calexico, are referring their students to this program. Again, students will develop skills that they can then bring back to their sites, to their clubs and programs to develop these leadership development things. And then finally, the last one I'll pass around. Again, the career expectations. These are the tasks and duties that the specialists located and stationed at our high school and our district, some of the tasks and responsibilities that they have for this year. So again, sharing information as we're kicking off the school year, and as we go throughout the year, I'll share more. Thank you.
Moving on to safety.
Good evening. We will be hosting our first safety committee, our district-wide safety committee, this coming Wednesday, September 19. We are finalizing our representatives from the different sites and different other departments. During this training, we will have our SRO Hernandez, who will be presenting or doing a presentation on ALICE. ALICE is a training solution to increase the odds of surviving a violent intruder. So it doesn't necessarily have to be active shooter, it could be any intrusion. And ALICE stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. And that goes beyond our conventional lockdowns. So we look forward to that presentation. I do have a question. Last year we did have, was it both Mr. Calderon as part of our committee? And I just want to know if you will continue to be representing the board in our committees? Yes? Okay, so then I'll be sending an email to you either tomorrow or Monday. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go and jump back to J2, Measure V update.
So here to report on a few projects that we have, or the projects that we have under construction and under design, the status of those projects. So starting first with our Ward Field student parking lot project. So that project is tracking per the revised schedule. Since we've reported last week on it, they have the majority of the landscaping done out in the parking lot. They have the majority of the concrete. They have one more big pour that they're going to do tomorrow and Monday, and then they'll be milling the existing paving middle of next week and paving the end of next week. So the milling is where they take a big milling machine and they knock off anywhere between 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch to get down into some good fresh aggregate, so that the new asphalt layer that goes over on top adheres well and it becomes one unit. So that's going to happen by the end of next week. So if you're driving by and you want to know if we're on schedule, well, we should be paved by Friday. Okay. The career technical education culinary arts facility, that project has been submitted to DSA, and we're tracking to have that completed, and students in desk or in the lab as per our project schedule. The modular building project, that project has been awarded at the last board meeting, or the contract approved at the last board meeting, and so Silver Creek is diligently preparing the drawings. We've been going back and forth this week and the week before, answering many of their questions, so that we can get our complete package submitted to DSA, and again start construction and complete it on schedule. So that project also is currently tracking on schedule. So I think it's good news is positive that all of our projects have been approved by the Citizen Oversight Committee. All of our projects comply with the intent of the bond that was approved, spending the dollars at the high school, and for our big modular building project, that project is tracking on schedule. So, that concludes my report, unless you have any questions.
I do have one more request. I have timelines behind me, which is, this is for the parking lot, correct?
Correct.
So I like to get timelines for all the projects that you just talked about today, so we can also post them on the wall.
Perfect. Okay.
So I appreciate that.
You bet.
Working. There it is. J5, board reports, Mr. Romero.
Welcome, everyone. I attended the open house for Jesus Chavez and Dual School. Everybody was pretty active, a lot of parents involved. All the teachers were making the presentations in the classroom, and it was, bottom line, it was well attended and very organized.
Thank you. Mr. Calderon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you for being in our meeting. Like Mr. Gonzalez said earlier today, we went on to Tustin Unified to look at some of the, actually not some, but at the program that they have over there regarding technology. And I'm super excited about what is it that we can do to not only duplicate what they have over there, but actually get ideas from them and have our own super program here. Now, a lot of people might say that it will cost a lot of money. However, I think it's worth it for our students. The technology is here to stay, so it's our decision whether we want to stay behind or we want to, as they say, keep up with the program. Also, I was able to visit most of the schools except one on the first week of school. And Mr. Gonzalez, I have to say that I was really glad to see that most of the AC units were working. I know for a fact that Jefferson right now has the library or room 28 AC down, so if we can work on that. But on the first week that I went, every single classroom that I visited with the principals was working. And I talked to a couple of staff members, a couple of teachers, and they liked the first week of school. They told me that that it was the best start that we've had in a couple of years. And I have to agree with them, and I want to congratulate everybody, starting from people at the DO to all the personnel, not only teachers, but staff, groundkeepers, everybody that made the start of the school year a success, because to me, in my own opinion, we had a successful start of the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Calderon, Jr.?
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Again, welcome back, and I'd like to thank all of you for being here tonight with us. Like Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Calderon mentioned, finally, after 2.5 years, we were able to visit Tustin. And it's amazing. It's a phenomenal thing that they're doing over there with technology one-to-one. It's not just about allowing our children or our students to take their laptops or their iPads home, but them being able to use it at home. And when I'm being able to use it at home is being able to do their homework and collaborate with the teachers and so forth. Also open their minds to what is ahead of them in the next generation. So again, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez, and thank you, Mr. Lucio. He's not here today for coordinating this visit. The people from Tustin were very welcoming, and they want people to just grow like them. And they're in the process of even growing bigger of what they are now. So hopefully we can get it going. There's a lot of enthusiasm and not a lot of dedication here, so hopefully we can get it going. Again, thank you for the timeline, Mr. Sanders and Mr. Gonzalez. We promised everyone to be transparent and where we're at with the projects, and I think the public, every time they see us, they should be able to see where we're at. There's a lot of questions about our projects, and hopefully by putting up the timelines, we can actually show the public where we're at with our projects. And the last thing is that our third annual AR program is on its way again, so we're accepting donations. This is a program we started 3 years ago to actually challenge our kids from elementary, the 7 elementaries, to read as many books as they can during the semester. So hopefully we can continue with this. To date, I think we have issued 200 bicycles to our kids. And our reading percentages have gone up every year. So again, if you're nice and have what are they, $67 a bike or something? We're accepting donations. So again, thank you. And again, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Castillo?
Yeah, again, like everyone said, welcome back to a new school year and one of our first meetings as we kick off this 18-19 year. Again, I think like we've heard, we've had a good start to the school year at our school sites, among staff. The welcome back and the staff training that most everyone participated in, I thought was really well received. Good content information. Feedback I heard from teachers was, don't let it be a one-time thing, a shotgun workshop, right? Have the district, have the sites, the administrators, keep bringing it up as a constant theme throughout the year. There's good content, good information. Let's not just let it go and forget about it. You know, it's an investment in our staff. Let's keep continuing to bring up these topics. And I'm pleased to hear that, you know, our board members had a chance to visit Tustin finally. I know we've said it before, this board is committed to technology and being innovative in the district. This district is positioned well to do a lot of great things based on its infrastructure, its staff, its support, and the classroom instruction. Along those lines, you know, I know we've gone to High Tech High and probably Lemon Grove. There's a lot of good things happening out there, and we can do a lot here. We know that technology coming down, just in today's paper, and I picked it up on this morning, you know, the BorderLink project being the wireless LTE connectivity here in Imperial County is expanding with an additional grant or expansion grant. Again, this is allowing students with the use of a little MiFi that they can take home, continue to work on their homework, log in, you know, be online, use the tools, their Google Classroom, their Edmodo, whatever it may be. Extend the learning day beyond, you know, the walls of the classroom or a fence of a school. So technology is expanding, and it's starting in the North County. We know we've seen it in Brawley and Westmoreland's covered, El Centro, Imperial, I think Heber soon, and Sealy. It's coming south. So I just want to emphasize, that, again, we be at the table as partners, moving this technology forward for our students, for our staff here in Calexico. Again, Calexico, with 9,200 students, we're about 25% of the student population in the county. So there's no reason why we can't be doing this, bringing these tools, these resources to our students, our schools, and staff. So that's exciting. We just, I think, need to be prepared for it, and not just with the hardware, but the infrastructure, the staff development for our teachers to use, to know how to use it appropriately, to integrate into their lessons, to enhance our student learning. So again, I think we've said it all of us in one form or another. We're committed to this and want to see it progress and move forward. And then last thing, of course, our back to school nights. A lot of positive feedback, so excited about that. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like a word. It's ironic that we have already spent a lot on our infrastructure. We have the wiring and so forth that it will take us to this next step. And again, we have Mr. Venison here. Maybe he can advocate for us to try to get some towers on the south side. Yeah. So again, we are prepared, and we just got to take that extra step. We took the right people to make this happen. I think it's not just a dream, it's a reality. So I think, thank you again, Mr.
Thank you. I just want to welcome everyone back, our students, all our teachers, all of our employees here at Calexico Unified School District, classified, certificated, and our administrators also as well. I think there's a lot of good ideas being spread out there by each one of us, and what it boils down to is our students. And we do want to make them, have another tool in their toolbox. That way when they go out to the real world, they're ready, and that they're that much more advanced than everyone else out there. Other than that, once again, thank you everybody for attending, and welcome back. We're going to go ahead and start off with K. Discussion, possible action. K1, Fiscal Crisis Management Assistance Team, FICMAT study for Calexico Unified School District.
All right, so at the last board meeting, the board gave direction to move forward and look at the Fiscal Crisis Management Assistant Team, known as FICMAT, to do a study for Calexico Unified School District. And two of the areas were maintenance and operations, transportation, and then the district office as far as the administration. So one of the things that we did is we called FICMAT. And so I personally was able to talk to Shailene Hart. Shailene Hart is the Deputy Executive Director for FICMAT. And I talked to her about the request for the FICMAT study on transportation, M&O, and the administrative services. What Ms. Hart mentioned was that due to the governor's new fiscal work at this time, they would not be able to provide the service requested. The only studies FICMAT is doing right now is when there is a district which has a state receivership, or there is a request from the County Office of Education because there is some hardship that a district is experiencing. And so the good thing is that we're none of those, right, which is a good thing. One of the things that that we discussed also was, since we're not having a fiscal emergency at this time, it's going to be kicked down. It's not going to be taken. But she did offer some other options. The two options that she offered was, one, she recommended that we go with outside consultants that they use in FICMAT, which are very familiar with the same systems that they use. One of them, and you may have heard about them before, is School Services of California. And so she recommended School Services of California specifically for the administrative services component. And then she also recommended Mr. Tim Purvis. Mr. Tim Purvis is retired, but he's a consultant. And he recommended him for the school transportation consultation services, along with a study for M&O. So I talked to Shayla Vickers. She's the vice president of school services, and I talked to her about the request. in regards to the administrative services. They call it the Organizational Efficiency and Staffing Review for the district office departments. And so what it pretty much entails is an evaluation of the effectiveness and efficiency of the current organizational structure, recommendations for assigning, reassigning work duties where appropriate, identification and suggested elimination of duplicated or unnecessary work, identification of ways to better integrate and coordinate administrative functions, review existing internal controls and make recommendations as appropriate, conduct an analysis of staffing levels based upon comparisons to other districts with similar characteristics, and then detailed implementation suggestions that may include changes in the administrative structure and or staffing. And so the cost of that particular study is $34,800. So that's the cost of that particular one. And so we do have a scope of the work that they would be doing, but that's just in a nutshell what the cost would be and the services that they would provide. Did talk to Tim Purvis. He's the school transportation consultation with consultation services. And some of the areas that they would focus on would be the district's transportation program, cost assessment to include the district's general fund, contribution, home to school and special education pupil cost and bus cost per mile, assessment of program staffing and organizational design based upon district transportation program size and services provided, assessment of the district's transportation facility to include terminal offices, vehicle maintenance, repair, garages, fueling infrastructure, fleet parking, county stormwater requirements and adherence, hazardous materials, best practices and security, implemented routine methodology, bus ridership averages and cost per mile, comparison for both home to school and special education transportation routes, analysis of district cooperative contract with external transportation providers, example like the County Office of Education, private for-profit transportation contractors, other school district delivery systems and public transportation, district safety and training program design, required school bus driver record maintenance, in-service programs, renewal and original driver candidate recruitment and training design, use of technology for efficiency in general transportation program support areas, program support of district extracurricular, co-curricular, and if applicable, external district field trips, support and billing methodology, action plan for district consideration as requested, study report findings and the recommendations. And also the other part that it would include, which that one I did not receive, but was the M&O component. And so the approximate cost of that one is $26,245. So those are the two different studies. Again, that's not through FCMAT, but like I explained, FCMAT is not in a position right now to be able to do studies. So it's two different recommendations that have worked specifically with FCMAT before. And so I just wanted to give an update to the board on that and see if there's any direction on any of those two.
So I'm thinking right now, those costs are a little more than I think we were thinking of initially.
Correct.
I know FIGMAT in the past, this district with FIGMAT covered maybe a third of that cost. So I'm thinking, what we do need to do is look at our systems in our district, our systems of operation within departments and buildings. But I'm thinking at this cost and at this time, I would probably hold off on this. And I'd want to study the other one, the transportation. He listed a lot of things there. I don't know if we need them all. But I think we need time just to, all right, just think about this and give it some more thought.
Okay.
Well, what about if maybe for the next board meeting, you bring us, I don't want to say a PowerPoint, but just a comparison of both and see what is it that they offer? Because you mentioned all these things and I'm
Right.
listening to you, but I'm more of a visual person.
Sure.
I don't know how the board feels about that
Yeah.
and see if what is it that they offer and pros and cons.
Okay, we can do that.
I mean, I don't know if the board is.
Well, I think initially, Mr. Castillo had a different idea, and this is totally different from what he wanted. I think at this point in time, we could wait. It could be pushed down several months down the line, because it's not cheap, so I prefer to wait.
Okay. Again, I just wanted to give the board an update.
Right, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'd also ask maybe if we're choosing to kind of put this on hold for now, which I'm fine with, maybe I'd contact some other districts. What did they pay for their FIGMAT study?
Okay.
Just so we know price comparison.
I mean, the other thing is, if the board's willing to hold off, maybe we can be in line with FICMAT, and whenever they're ready to, be able to do the study for the district, maybe that would be the most appropriate time at that point.
Did they say more or less time-wise?
They did not want to give a timeline, just made it very clear that right now, anything that they received, they would be kicking it down at this point.
Yeah, definitely put our name in and have them put us on the list.
Okay.
I mean, you had how many areas that they were going to actually check? There was 50, 60 of them probably, or more?
Right, for which one?
Yeah,
For the
for-
administrative?
Yeah.
For Tim Purvis, yeah, he was giving a very
Well,
comprehensive scope of
Well,
what
and
they were
maybe
looking
Mike's
for.
correct, where maybe we don't need to check all these areas, only certain areas. That way we can not only go ahead and do transportation, we can also do maintenance and so forth, and just focus on certain areas.
Okay.
I mean, do you understand what I'm, actually not going too in-depth to it and maybe cut the cost, but,
Yeah, so, so what I'm hearing, that the scope being basically less as opposed to more.
yes.
What I would want to find out is the cost, because they do send staff over, and so that implies a cost. And so
Yes.
if it's a smaller scope, is there really a cost savings for a smaller scope? And so those are things that we can look at.
Carlos, so what about this? What about if you just put what you just said in writing for us, and we can let you know, okay, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I don't want.
Okay, as soon as I
And
get the
not, maybe not there, but just send it to us in like a survey and see what is it that each one of us wants.
So as soon as I get the full
Yes.
comprehensive scope, I'll send it to all the trustees.
Yes.
Okay,
And I would agree with Mr. Calderon. Let's put it on paper so we can see it.
Right.
We're in no rush right now, because we can analyze it, take our time with it.
okay.
Thank you, Carlos. Any other questions? Moving on now to K2, fleet for maintenance and operation vehicles.
So there was a request to put this one on the agenda, so we wanted to put it forth as far as for discussion with the trustees.
I don't know if you guys remember, probably like 6 months ago, I visited the warehouse, maintenance and operations, and Dario showed me around, because I like to see things. When they tell me something, I like to make sure that what is it they're talking about. And the fleet, I was able to look at the fleet, our fleet of trucks, and we do need new trucks. We do need a new fleet of trucks. We do need a new fleet of working trucks. Maybe we don't need the 23 cars that they want or that they presented to us before, but I know for a fact that we do need new trucks. Okay, so I would like for us to discuss if, or come to an agreement as what is it that maybe we want, but we need to talk about this. I mean, that's my feeling. We do need to talk about this.
So Carolina's here to be able to answer questions regarding the budget, and we did invite Fleet Enterprise as well, because they had given a presentation in the past in the event that the board has, questions.
Good evening, board members. Okay, so for this item, I went ahead and before the meeting, I looked at last year's expenditures in the transportation department. I was able to see that based on the proposal that Enterprises is submitting, I don't know if you can see this page in the attachment. So they're saying that we would be spending $139,000 to be able to obtain 21 vehicles. And that would be an initial cost of $88,200 for the maintenance, $25,000 for the purchase, and then some about $26,000 for the fuel. So I looked at last year, 17-18, while closing the books, and we did spend $95,000 on fuel versus the 25 or 26,000 that they are listing here on the proposal. So that's a big difference in savings. As far as the maintenance supplies, we did spend $79,000 on maintenance for the vehicles, for the old fleet. They're saying it's about 88, but that's because, but then after the first year, it goes down to 6,000. And then I also looked at professional services, which would also be taking the vehicles to the shop of some sort. We spent $30,000 on that. So overall, we spent about $200,000 last year in maintaining our old fleet. With the proposal that Enterprise is submitting, they are saying a 1 year of $139,000. So they're right off the bat, we would be saving $60,000. In this year's 18-19 budget, I've already budgeted $220 towards fuel and maintenance. Plus, we have the $50,000 in the LCAP for additional vehicles. So overall, that's $270,000 in the budget, in the 18-19 budget. So my analysis of this is that if we can redistribute our expenditures, instead of paying for repairs, instead of paying for, high fuel costs, then we can move those expenditures into paying the lease, if that's where the board wants to go. Plus, we get all the vehicles in one shot, and we take care of the safety issue of having our employees driving old vehicles. And that's what I was able to look at as far as the budget piece is concerned. So I don't know if you have any more questions.
So if I can add to that, and I'll just say, no, I'm in favor of this. I think it's good for the district, good for the employees. On the fiscal side, you mentioned, and from the last report we had at the last board meeting, this is on the agenda.
Okay.
Not this one, but the previous time it was presented. Again, you mentioned the fleet management, enhancing efficiency and reducing cost. You mentioned $139,000, right? What we're paying now for maintenance and fuel, not to mention all the other costs you added, totaling over $200,000.
I didn't look at overtime for mechanics, putting in more time.
Mechanics,
I didn't look at
tools,
that.
People managing, the paperwork, all that.
No, I
In
didn't.
addition, presented was the cost of replacing the 21 vehicles, and the lease was 118, which is less. And that's a fixed cost, right? A fixed cost for our budget. So that's a line item we can always plan on.
Exactly.
It's pretty much set. We're not going over or under year to year. So we can count on that. And then over time, as we use the vehicles and if we choose to replace them, there's equity in those vehicles, right?
And
Equity
that
of
would be
74.
Yeah, if he wants to,
I'm hearing
add
equity of
further.
74,000, that's what was presented last time.
Yes.
Which reduces the cost for future vehicle acquisitions. Another 21, so every couple of years, we're having new vehicles for staff. Safety, again, Ms. Cito mentioned the trucks and vans, the list that was provided. The newest vehicles, there's only two, was from 2005. Those are the latest vehicles, the newest ones we have, 13 years old. All the other ones are from 1997, 1989, 1999. We're talking old vehicles. And I know we don't drive those vehicles that old.
My
Yeah,
wrong.
most of us don't. But again, we're talking about safety of employees, the seat belts, the anti-lock brakes, airbags. For us in the office, we're here in the office or at a desk job or in the field. Our office environment is pretty much set. For a lot of our employees in the field, driving back and forth, this is like their office. So it's important for them to be safe, for them to have the air conditioning that our other employees desire. And I think in addition, just looking at this, the services that they include, the monitoring the fleet, It's still under warranty, the management, the fuel reports, rental replacements as needed. All this is just a savings for the district and personnel that I see. But again, most importantly is the safety of the employees. And again, if we can reduce our maintenance expenses by 69%, those are other soft costs that, aren't factored into this lease, but there's a lot here. Again, I think it's good, and just for disclosure, I use this in my own work as well.
Okay.
Carolina, thank you so much for breaking that down to us as far as it goes, because you actually went over everything, I don't know if it was mentioned on the last time. I know the report was provided, but you actually broke it down and told us exactly what was spent last year, and you actually took the time to do that. With that said, I mean, if it's gonna be a cost savings for us and stuff like that, I'm leaning more towards, agreeing to this. Safety was mentioned last time, that's the number one concern. I think that everybody echoed here the last time. But now with this said, how you just broke it down, it makes a lot more sense now than how it was, stated before. If there's gonna be a cost savings for us, then you know what, this is something that I think that we should look into a little bit more in depth and stuff like that. Because
and I
if
would-
it's cost effective, it makes a lot of sense. To me, it makes a lot of sense, instead of going out there and spending, just writing it down. I mean, it's a lot of money that we're throwing out there.
Yes, and I would recommend that whoever's gonna manage this lease, that they monitor closely, that we stick to that fuel or to those costs. So maybe every 6 months, we do an analysis. If truly we are saving, or if truly we are spending the amount that's listed here on the proposal. I would think that we will, because the vehicles are newer, and so their system should be working better. It's a matter of working with the vendor as well. But then again, that's my analysis of the cost.
So at the last meeting, you mentioned there was 50,000 allocated for vehicles, or?
Yeah, this year, there's $50,000 in the LCAP, and then since last year, they spent 94,000 in fuel. I allotted 110,000 as budget for this year. And for the maintenance supplies in the transportation department, I allotted another 110. And they spent 78 last year. So,
Does that include fuel for the buses?
and that is something else that I need to look at, because this is combined between service trucks and pupil transportation vehicles.
That's a big difference right there, okay?
I know that we have CNG, so I think that the fuel is most, and maybe Mr. Nielsen can answer to that. I know we have the CNG buses. Is that mostly fueled here?
Yeah, the CNG buses are fueled here.
Mhm.
We do have diesel buses as well, which are fueled from the diesel, but you just have to look at, say, diesel versus gas.
Mm-hmm.
Is what you have to look at, so what we spent on gas versus diesel.
And maybe I can come back in with the desegregated
You need
information,
you need to
because
segregate the
yeah,
costs.
of truly the service
Right.
part. But as of right now, this is what I found. But still, there's a big difference. I don't see that out of the 200 that we spend. I wouldn't be surprised that half of it is already in the service vehicles.
What's the total I assume the lease is 5 years, right?
This is a 10-year
10-year lease?
10-year lease. The first, what I saw, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 6 years is at 137,000 a year. A year, and then the last 5 years is 93. And then with the option to sell the fleet, right?
Yeah, it's actually a 5-year lease, and then what happens is all that equity at the end gets rolled into the new payments. That's why they come down in year 6.
So we're continuously buying vehicles, same as a lease. I'm not in favor of a lease.
Okay.
I prefer to buy them. Go five, I mean, I said at the last meeting, in June, 5 vehicles a year. If we could afford it now, why pass the burden of the debt down 5 years from now? We don't know how we're gonna be 5 years from now. You went and bought two vehicles, right?
Yeah, that was my question. We bought, with those 50,000, then we buy 2 vehicles?
We bought 2 vehicles.
We bought three. We bought
Three?
two trucks for M&O and then 1 student transport van.
So therefore, if we could buy 5 a year, Why we want to burden our future generation with debt when we're continuously replacing it? I'm not in favor of leases, period.
option to purchase these vehicles at the end?
There is, I did run. the
There's a
same-
residual.
Yeah, I ran the same analysis. You can lease it to zero. We really, it doesn't matter to us. So when I ran those numbers, it would be $132,000 a year. But the argument is for cash flow reasons, most of our school districts want their cash, and so they're doing this lease where it's, you know, the word lease is probably a little misleading here, because this is a different type of lease than most people are used to. This is called an equity lease or a municipal lease, where it's just creative financing where there's a balance. So we're happy to do it to zero, where you finance the whole thing. You just pay a little bit more, and then at the end of the 5 years, you own it.
What's implied interest factor that you would include?
This is, so we use the negotiated rate that's through the E&I Association, which every school district we partner with piggybacks on that, and it's 3.5% over the 3-year treasury note.
Over the 3-year treasury note. You know, I'd like to have, if we look at maybe a loan, okay, getting City of El Centro did that several years ago, a long time, over 10 years ago. They got $300,000 loan, and they bought a bunch of vehicles.
That's what
And-
we're proposing to do here.
Well, this is a lease,
It's
not really
We'll
loan.
do a finance, it'll be $132,000.
Okay, I'd like to get competitive bids out there then, you know.
We can
Now,
do
let me
that.
ask you, they haven't bought a vehicle since 2005? That's the last time?
Those 2005 vans, just so you know, are the old Garnet vans.
Right.
The old Garnet vans that used to be the student transport vans that were deemed unsafe for student transport, but
Uh-huh.
were safe enough for my employees. I want to put the human factor on this because I have employees that I caught getting into their vans and only one person had a seat. The other two were sitting on milk crates. Sorry, Gilbert. They stole the milk crates, so they had a place to sit. I had a tell them to stop, get out of the car, and we'll find another way for you to get to work. So if we go the 2, 3, 5 vehicles a year, how long is that gonna take us to get there? I don't think as a business it's good to own a vehicle for 25 years, because then we end up right back where we're at here.
This is why you gotta replace them every year, five a year, and as they get 10 years old, whatever, 15, then let me ask you, all of a sudden, this is a crisis, the way I've been told. Did you approach Enterprise, or they approached you?
Actually, the city of Calexico told Greg to come talk to us.
Okay,
about
because
it.
they were selling their services, right?
Yeah, the city of Calexico is doing it.
Yeah.
Same with
so-
ICOE. is.
Yeah, they were selling their services, yeah. So it wasn't because we saw it as well, it is important to do it. But I'm just wondering why we waited so long.
Well, I've been presenting on this since I got here. When I first got here almost 4 years ago,
Uh-huh.
I think it was my 3rd board meeting, I put together a presentation and presented it to the then board. And, I'll be honest.
Well, the first I heard about it was,
I've been here the 4 years, and this presentation was on our student transportation. That's why we got these vans. We got the sedans and so forth. And don't get me wrong, I understand that our safety of our employees is important to us, but there's still a lot of things here. We bought 3 trucks already this year. Next year, we'll buy another 3. I don't think that all your trucks have crates in them, do they?
Right, that's just the tip of it. I mean.
Well,
Mr.
I
Calderon,
mean,
he
if
saw
they
it.
have, then we need to put them out to side and put them out to pasture. I understand that. But I mean, we're not gonna go and buy 23 trucks if we don't need them.
Again, human factor here. Let's think about the guy on the roof fixing the AC units. He gets off the roof. He gets in his van that hasn't had AC in 5 years. I mean, it was a demanded bargaining thing that the teachers came to because their classrooms were 76 degrees.
So none of your trucks have AC?
No, none, not a one.
how come we're barely hearing about this?
Again, I presented on this 4 years ago.
Again, I think
saw-
with budgets over the last couple of years and just the fiscal crisis, it hasn't been a huge priority.
It should be if they're on crates.
I
I'll tell you
talked-
that right now.
I talked about this about 6 months ago because I
That's the
walked-
first time I heard about it,
Okay.
yes, 6 months ago.
So, and it's, otherwise, and I'm sorry I'm gonna say it, otherwise I would have laughed when you said that they're sitting on crates. But I saw a couple of trucks where the seats were missing. this much from the actual Cushing, okay?
Yeah, there's no excuse to have that kind of equipment
Yes.
for staff.
Okay. I mean, I also got here a quote for trucks, because I asked Jeremy and Carolina to put to give me a quote for trucks. Like I said before, maybe we don't need the 23 vehicles, but I do see an immediate need on work trucks. That I do see.
Well,
That I do see.
and I'm not debating that. I mean, myself, 4 years ago, I know that the student transportation was a problem. And that's why we purchased these vans. But we went out to bid and we got vans for our kids and we got vans for our staff too. I don't think all the vehicles need to be replaced, maybe half. But that's my personal, I haven't gone out there, maybe I will go out there to check the vehicles and.
I
maybe-
invite the board to come job shadow,
Yeah.
anybody
Yeah.
at M&O, do a couple day ride along.
Yes. And don't get me wrong, I understand that there is a need, but, there's, 2019, 2020, that's gonna be one of our heaviest years, correct, Ms. Rodriguez? As far as our budget.
Oh, yeah, no.
And to
yes.
tie this board to 5 years, I can go and lease a car for 3 years right now, if I wanted to.
Yeah,
So
and-
why does it have to be 5 years?
And that's why I mentioned that it would not be increasing the budget, it would just be a redistribution of expenditures instead of pay, but then again, we need to look at the real numbers.
Yeah, you
Uh-huh.
have misleading
Yeah,
numbers.
because I have
Yeah.
another question. You do have 2 mechanics. What are they gonna do from now
Well,
on?
they fix the buses,
The buses?
yeah, and
Okay.
whatever else
All right.
breaks
So why
down.
don't we do this, and why don't we just hold off, bring it back to the next one, because we're gonna keep on going around in circles and
Yes.
circles with this. Carolina, why don't you get us some good numbers as far as fuel costs and all that stuff?
Yeah, I tried reaching
Um,
out to Mr. Espinosa, but he wasn't here today, so I will follow up and get true numbers.
I will
Yes.
tell you, in my analysis for fuel, what I did is I assumed you're getting 8 miles per gallon today. In your new trucks, you would be at 16. So it's essentially cutting your fuel in half. And we try and be conservative on absolutely everything. When I price out a Ford F-150, those are getting 23, 24 miles per gallon, but your price with the E&I contract is $21,010 for a 2019 Ford F-150.
So
That's an extremely competitive contract.
I didn't get your name. What kind of trucks or work trucks are you gonna be providing us with? Beds that actually have toolboxes in them and everything?
Correct, we matched what you had today, where there's some
So they're
vans that may
work
have bed
trucks.
packages, ladder
With the
racks,
lifts and all.
Racks and everything, okay.
Diesel or gas?
gas, for your mileage patterns, absolutely gas.
Okay.
All right.
But a full war truck,
Full work truck.
okay.
So maybe, Mr. President, maybe for the.
Yeah,
one
we'll
of the
bring
next
it
board
back,
meetings?
we'll bring it back for the next board meeting and stuff like that. I mean, I want to echo, I think everybody's echoing here is safety for our employees and stuff like that, but at the same time, we do need to be fiscally sound with what's going on. But if we could get those numbers for our next board meeting, that'd be, work out a lot better, I think.
Okay.
And if I can add then, for the next board meeting, that's fine. I'd also like to add a review of these vehicles. Which ones are unsafe right now for our employees to drive? And if so, then we need to do
Yes.
something about it, surplus them.
That should
And
be
which
an
ones don't have
emergency.
ACs?
So in the next report, which ones of these are unsafe for employees?
Yep.
We, with all of our municipalities, we target 2000, older than 2007, because 2007 is when ABS brakes and side airbags became mandatory from the government. So that's usually where we go back, and that's why we're recommending looking at your entire fleet.
So in which case, of the 21 vehicles we have, all 21 don't have the anti-lock standardization. All 21 don't have the stability control standardization for safety. 8 of the 21 have airbags, the rest do not.
Correct.
Yeah, because if you multiply what you do by the year and stuff like that, I mean, I come out with the number of 835,200 K, correct? And that comes out, if you divide that by 21 vehicles, that's 40 K per vehicle. So, I mean, it's pretty high. I mean, that's why we have to go out there and be a little bit more competitive as far as it goes also as well, to try to save the school district some money also as well. So if you could come back with those numbers and stuff like that, that way we could go ahead and make a better sound decision.
Yeah, and just operational expenses are usually about 60% of the overall cost of running a vehicle. So the fuel and the maintenance should exceed the cost of the truck.
Thank you.
Yes, my name's Greg Murphy with Enterprise Fleet Management. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you,
Mr. Murphy,
everybody.
before you leave, I asked you, well, I didn't ask you, I made a statement on a 3-year lease instead of a 5. Would your,
We can do anything
Any-
you
any-
want. You
okay.
can pay cash for the whole vehicle up front.
No, a
You can do
three-year
5, you can do 10, you can do 20.
a 3-year lease, your company would,
Yes, and part of our service, just so you know, and actually a lot of school districts and cities do this, where we start on a 5-year lease. You're, like an F-150 is the example. You can get that through us for $21,010. When I run numbers on a 2-year-old F-150, they sell for about $19,500. So we could technically come back in 2 years and say, this looks like a very small depreciation, you know, and $1,500 of depreciation. We recommend cycling this vehicle because your mileage patterns are so low and your purchasing power is so high that the resale market commands a very good price. And so part of our service is coming out here 2-3 times a year and evaluating where you're at in those leases at all times. So it's not just waiting the full 5 years. We might come back out in a year, and it sounds selfish, but there's a lot of cities and school districts that are taking advantage of this, and their depreciation is less than $1,000 a year. It's extremely inexpensive. And that's because you can buy these so competitively.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
and we'll be
Thank you,
bringing
Board.
back next week. K3, request for office space for the Calexico Neighborhood House Literacy Program, and I think we had a speaker, Mr. Raul Ureña.
I'm going to hold my comments in case there's any questions, but I do have a handout for the board.
All right. K3.
All right, so for K3, there's been a request for office space from the Calexico Neighborhood House Literacy Program, and this is for Ms. Cindy Alba, who's here in the audience. And so we've met, and we've discussed this in cabinet as well in regards to having the literacy program over at the new FRC Center, which is what we're proposing, and there will be a presentation on that as well. And so the request from the literacy program is to use some of the space over at the old Aurora site, which we are looking to be the new FRC Center. It's basically from the First Five Commission, and they're requesting office space for up to 3 staff members for storage for materials, access basically the office Monday through Friday, for a duration of 1 year, because part of it is that they're grant funded. So they'll be reapplying, from what I understand, and keeping fingers crossed that everything goes well and they continue to be funded. I did talk to Ms. Alba, and they provide a lot of wonderful support and a lot of training when it comes to a lot of our pre-K programs, not only in Calexico but throughout the Imperial County. And so we do support this with the vision that we have for the FRC. We believe that it will lend itself well. There's also a cost that is associated with it as well. But we want to bring it to the board for discussion and see if it's something that the board is interested in the district moving forward with.
Yeah, I think it's a good program. I recommend that we approve this recommendation.
Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Or
I
is-
think, I talked to Mr. Ureña and, Mr. Ortega, and, and I asked those questions and then some. I think it's going to be a good program, because it's going to affect, or it's going to have an effect on our own kids, okay? So I would like for this board to consider this proposal and have Carlos or his staff talk to Neighborhood House and come to an agreement. That would be my suggestion.
And do you know what space at the Aurora campus?
because we have mental health, or what's moving in?
So I'll do kind of like the pitch for what's coming for the behavioral health.
Yeah.
There are some of the old, trailers that are there. So partly when we're looking at the vision, which Hortensia will give a presentation on that, you know, we're looking at overall the services that we'll be providing to the community. And so there are, for example, the brick buildings that are there. The goal is to have all those renovated and remodeled completely between the funds that the district has set aside through the LCAP and through behavioral health services to do their part of the whole renovation. So the vision as a whole is to provide the best community service to our community. So where the neighborhood house and the literacy program lend itself perfectly is that they provide services to the community already. As you know, with a new parking lot that we have here, we tore down the professional learning community. But when it comes to the actual old multi-purpose room at the old Aurora site, you know, that room was fixed up. And so we're calling it the community and parent center. And it goes along with a vision, you know, with the whole purpose of making sure that we're providing services to the community as a whole. And so one of the things that when I talked to Ms. Alva is the trainings that they could offer to our community for all those students that are, you know, at the pre-K, TK level. So it just opens the doors to, you know, providing great service to our community, but they would be in one of those empty, you know, classrooms that we have at Aurora.
Any other discussion, any other questions, comments, concerns?
That's my only
So-
concern.
I think, what was your direction, Richard?
To approve this motion,
Is it an action item?
approve the
What's
request.
possible action?
Yeah. I'll
So
second.
we don't have,
So there was a motion.
we don't have a contract, we don't have an agreement with
Well,
them.
and that's the thing that I was gonna say, if
Yeah.
we could go ahead and bring this back for our next meeting, with, that way we could go ahead and take action with it, that way we could meet with them and put everything in writing, that way we could go ahead in agreement, or is there something already?
No, that's correct. The recommendation is to move forward on it so that way
Right.
we can bring back an agreement.
Exactly.
Yes.
So motion by, Mr. Romero, seconded by Calderon Junior. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor, Mr. Romero, Calderon Junior, Castillo, and myself. Good luck. K4, request for office space for the American Legion Gory Lake Post 900 for office space.
So this was brought as an agenda item by,
Yes,
Board?
so I have been contacted by the American Legion, as they need, it seems like they need a space to meet, twice a month. So I would like for this board to consider this, and if an agreement, have somebody from the American Legion, which I believe is Mr. Sanchez, come and meet with you so you can work out details.
okay.
Okay, if we have the space. I don't know if we have, I mean, I know we just did this. I don't know if we have any more space.
So did you mention meeting space is what they're
Just a
requesting?
meeting space, but that's why they need to come and talk to you, see if they only need it twice a month, or if it's an actual office that they need on a continuous basis.
Right, and I can clarify, I mean, we do have the facilities
All right.
request at this point as well, so maybe that might be something as easy that can work for them.
Okay, so can I have Mr.
Yeah,
Sanchez come and talk to you?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to K5, solar project renewable energy programs at sites. I think that was,
Yeah, also, with the, since we already approved, going to bid not going to bid for the construction of our first two buildings, right? Okay, so I think this is the right time for us to consider what is it that we're going to do for those classrooms. When Mr. Calderon Junior and I and Mr. Gonzalez went to Tustin, we saw not only the technology that they're using in the classroom, but also all the parking lots. All of the parking lots have solar panels. So I think it would be wise, since we are already going to go through these changes in our district. I think it would be wise for us to consider going solar if, I don't wanna say it like this, but if the price is right, meaning if we are going to see a savings in our electric bill, for the lack of better words.
Yeah, the problem with that is maybe Tustin has a different agreement with their electric company in which they were getting credits for energy not used. The ID, we know for a fact, is no longer doing that. So where's the cost advantage? It's going to cost you $200,000 to put solar panels, but it's going to take you 20 years to pay it based on what you save. And then you're going to start all over again. So we got to take a look at what is the cost savings. If the ID was saying, we'll give you credit for whatever energy you don't use, okay, it's advantageous. But they are no longer doing that.
Any other discussion?
I think this was brought up in the past, Mr. Gunn, talking about it, we had good discussion. I think I'm safe to say that we have no idea about solar savings costs, the return on investment. At least we don't, I don't. I don't know if the district does either. But this is kind of a new area for us, and I think there's interest, right? You're expressing interest. I think, I think we can begin looking at learning more about it, or doing an analysis, or we don't know what the cost would be, the return of this investment would be. We just need to learn more about it. Is it feasible? Is it not? Are there funding opportunities out there to support this? At least I don't know about this.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up. I mean, I don't want to open an RFP right now on this, but I want to start the conversation and see what are, like you said, what opportunities we have. If it's feasible to us, not only feasible, but if it's, if we could take advantage of what we have here, right? Like Mr. Romero says, well, maybe we wouldn't say, we would only save a penny or two, okay? But at the end, if the other costs related to installation and things like that would make it actually more expensive than what we have right now, well then let's not. But I just would like for us to start talking about that, since we're gonna build the other 4 buildings at the high school, or we have the plans for the 4 buildings at the high school.
So then maybe a suggestion for the district, opportunity, is you guys go to, I don't know, Cash Conference or other events, find out what they're doing, how these might benefit, what services they might have for us, for the district. They might do an analysis for us at no cost, so.
Yeah,
They
that's
do,
what,
they do them now. But, we ran into someone in San Diego, they do. But I mean, I have to agree with both of you. I mean, we're in construction mode now. I don't know whose idea, I think it was Eduardo's idea, to install fiber optic. And that's why we can go on to the next step with our technology, because our system will support all these one-to-one devices. All we have to do is connect the site, and then we're good to go. So my hat's off to Eddie there, that he was thinking ahead, and maybe we should think ahead and put out there, lines or infrastructure that'll, one day maybe we can go to solar. I mean, it makes sense. If they're already tearing up the ground, why not install, if that's feasible.
Yeah, and that's one of those things also that hopefully there is some type of programs out there that allows for solar projects where it doesn't cost the school anything. And if that's the case, then we have to start looking into that and seeing what it is, or how do we get in line to get those projects done. If it's not gonna cost the school anything, then go that route. But if there is a cost to it, then, it's something that we need to come back and, discuss and see what route it is that we wanna take. So, we'll discuss this more.
Okay. So
It makes sense.
Right. So am I hearing direction to try to, go with a company that does a cost analysis to see if it's cost effective?
or see what's out there. See, and that's what we want to see, because this is all about who's gonna do it for us, and who is, number one, who's gonna do the right job, and number two, who's gonna do it for us that we can take advantage of their prices. So, this is new territory for me. So, I wouldn't, honestly, I would rely on Ms. Montaño and Jeremy to see what is it that they have over there as far as grants or other companies, other schools that have done these type of programs or these types of projects. So honestly, whatever the board wants to do, if we just want to start looking, that's fine.
So I'm hearing direction, maybe just do some research, come back to us.
And come
Maybe
back to
talk to Brawley High, they've got panels in there. Good,
IVC? Yeah, okay.
and then just maybe come back with some
Yeah, come back
comments.
to us for the.
We
for
can
the-
do that.
Thank you. Moving on now to K6, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and the City of Calexico for 2 school resource officers for the 2018-2019 school year.
I move we approve.
I just do have one
Discuss-
question before we go any.
Okay.
I mean, I support it. My only question is, how are we gonna fund the second, what funds are gonna be used?
So I'll refer to Ms. Rodriguez, Carolina.
General fund,
There is,
That's what I wanna ask.
Yeah.
general fund.
there is a public comment also as well. Mr. Rod- You want to go ahead and speak on that right now, or do you want to wait till? Yeah? Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Go ahead.
Look, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I asked a question.
Is there a comment?
That's all I mean, what fund?
The funding source?
Yes.
Yes, the second SRO will be funded through the elimination of a science teacher at the high school. The classes or the science classes one class was eliminated, or one teacher was eliminated, not needed, not eliminated. It was just not needed, and so that's how we were able to fund the second SRO.
And I'm a little cautious about that. Because we know we need teachers. Science is a hard credential subject area to fill. We know right now, I think where classes are over or enrolled fully and electives and.
And that's why when Mrs. Williams approached us on that request, I said, we don't have the funding to do $100,000 to fund the second SRO, and so she came up with. I asked her, how can you fund it, or what can you do in your budget to fund this? And then she said that she did not need a science teacher, based on the enrollment or based on the schedule, and that's how this came about.
Well, and I know SROs not only go out to, are located in the high school, they actually go out to our other elementary schools and everything. So I would think that why is the high school taking the whole hit for this next SRO when these SROs are for our kids? I mean, he constantly goes, in fact, we have him here, from this side of Calexico to the other side, and he must take 6-7 trips, whether it's Blanche, Charles, Williams, Willie Moreno and so forth, but he goes back and forth. So my question is, why is the high school taking the hit, and why are we actually doing away with one of our teacher positions? I don't know if we need, I mean, science, of course.
I'm just doing the budget
You needed to
piece.
go to college, so.
Programmatically, I don't know how that makes sense. Budget-wise, I know it makes sense.
Well, I think not having the principals here, I think if everybody pitched in, it would be possible, but to have the high school take the whole,
And it is based on priority of the board. As you know, you have a structural deficit.
Yes.
It's something's got to give.
Yeah, but safety of our kids is most important.
Yes, and that's your and that's
yes.
the priority right now over
Yes.
science.
Yes.
But we're not denying the fact that we need a second SRO. That's not the point.
It's the fun.
No, it's the funding. And like
And
Mr.
where it's
Calderon says, why can all the other schools pitch in instead of just the high school? And then also, Carlos, I went to the high school, and we have a problem with overages. We have a problem with overages, but Ms. Williams wants to cut a science teacher instead of putting that teacher to do to teach, or instead of using those funds to hire another teacher that maybe can teach computers or art. Carlos, we just spoke about this yesterday.
Mr. Weiler, go ahead.
There's a legal implication here, so let me ask a question, and you may or may not know. In terms of certificated layoff, a certificated employee, such as a teacher, cannot just be let go at this time of the year.
He was
So-
not-
so-
he was
so-
not let
so-
go.
So the question becomes, is there already a vacancy built into this process so that the money is there, or does a person have to lose their job now?
No, it was a true vacancy that was not needed to
Correct.
be filled.
It was a true vacancy.
Mm-hmm.
But still, we have overages at the high school, and I don't know if the rest of the board knows this, but we have over 7 preps that we're buying. That 70 grand that we're buying because there's positions needed. So again, it's nothing against our SROs, because we do need our SROs. And like
Correct.
Lencho says, to go from one side of this, to go from Kiki to Willie, it might take, what, 4 minutes, 5 minutes?
No,
But
it
what-
depends on the day.
No, well, if
Depends
you're
on-
racing,
Try to
but
go
what
there.
can happen in those 5 minutes?
A lot.
There we go.
So,
So we need that second SRO. That's not the point.
Correct.
The point is the funding source. The-
are there
Well,
other,
it's general budget.
are there other funding sources that you know of,
That I know of?
that we have?
From.
Well, it's up to you to tell me where to cut.
Alright.
Where the money for.
So, no, it's up to us to approve
It's
the
up to the
funding.
board
Yes.
to set the priorities, and I will draft it however you want me to draft it.
Can we slice it for
And then
me?
we should.
Well, it takes time.
think
The
you
bottom
have to-
line is, it's
think
coming
of
from the
this.
one pool of monies, okay?
General
Whether you
budget.
want to show it 5 different pools, different schools.
Yeah.
The bottom line is
It's
it
the
comes
same
from one
pot of
pool.
money.
The same pot. So it doesn't matter if you say, okay, Dual gets charged 20%, Rockwood 20%, Jefferson 20%.
Is
The
there a
bottom
motion
line
for
is,
it now or no?
it's one pool.
Well, we know that, but what we're saying is that at least Dual will know that he or she in this case, will have $10,000
Well,
less.
But I'll give you another example. I mean,
Better approve
we're
one right now.
talking enrollment and need. I mean, we've had certain positions that because of low enrollment, we've eliminated, not only at the high school, but at the elementary level as well. And so at this point, we have one pool of money, which is the general fund.
The question,
It could have easily been a position at the elementary level that we eliminated, but again, all those positions are paid out of general fund.
And I know we did contemplate it and trying to be creative about this. We asked Mrs. Montaño, can this be done with Title I? Can this be done with supplemental and concentration funds? And the answer has been no, because there's background history of other districts who've attempted to do this, but then they get audited and findings come about it. So the only way to do it is through unrestricted.
quick question.
Sure.
If we were to go ahead and move on with this, would we have an officer right away, or do we have to wait till the beginning of the year?
So that's a good question. I've talked to Chief Gerardo about this. The soonest, and he is assuring that he would have an officer first thing in January, as soon as we come back from the break. So the reason for that is the Calexico Police Department is low-staffed. And they're expecting to have new officers coming straight out of the academy. One of the things that Chief Gerardo mentioned was he's not going to assign us any of those new police officers because they don't have the experience of being out on the street yet. However, what he did mention was that come late October, November, he has a new set of new officers that are coming in. So what that's going to do is going to allow his veteran officers to be able to take on those roles of school resource officer to fill the need that we have. And so he feels he's very adamant about not giving or putting the district in any position of liability by not having an officer that's experienced, one, but also two, he doesn't want to put the city in any position of liability by not having enough officers, patrol the city of Calexico.
Are you buying any preps in science at the high school?
I believe one,
One prep,
correct. That's all the need is.
that's 10 grand. Well, I'm willing to go with this. However, let me be clear that I don't want to hear that we are short at the high school, that we are short in teachers or staff, I should say, because it's on video that we said, or that you said, that that position was no longer needed. So I'm very clear when I say that I'm willing to go with this as long as the high school's not understaffed.
Yeah, so to go on the record, there was a science vacancy
Yes.
that was not filled.
Okay, yes, but you said that you were buying one science prep. So that's not,
Correct.
that's not 6 preps, that's one science prep.
Right.
Okay,
So,
so I'm
Mr.
willing to go with this.
Mr. Reña, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Raul Ureña. Just to be very clear for the record, on this item, I'm not representing Calexico Neighborhood House or any other agency. I'm representing myself as a private citizen, as a previous Calexico graduate, class of 2015, and a senior year UC Santa Cruz student of economics and mathematics. I love cost-benefit analyses. They're my favorite. With regard to this item, there is new data. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the U.S. Department of Education data or any of the studies that have come out from UCLA and University of California, Los Angeles, and the American Civil Liberties Union. I actually brought some copies for you guys. Before I go to that, let me tell you this. I'm recommending you table this item and then subsequently reject it. We do not need another school resource officer. Let me tell you what's been happening in this country, data-wise, right? A lot has changed since the 1980s, late 80s, 90s, 2000. The era of the war on drugs, the era of over-policing our students is over, right? There are, the data shows, the academic analysis, this U.S. Department of Education data shows that the presence of school resource officers makes the risk level for at-risk students, which is the kids that are misbehaving, the kids that are more likely to get suspended, makes life harder for them. I'm a student with a disability. I've lived with a disability that has impacted my behavior, that has impacted my emotions. I have had friends with depression and understood how depression has led to substance abuse. In fact, one of my friends committed suicide, again, a Calexico graduate, a couple of weeks ago. I attended his funeral. I'm excited about behavioral health. I am not excited about the police at our schools. This is a cost-benefit analysis, and the cost-benefit analysis is not binary. It is not safety equals officer, and safety does not equal officer. Safety is counselors. Safety is behavioral health. I mean, the data shows that when we invest in our teachers, when we invest in cleanliness, when we invest in those basic needs that our kids come in, the risk level of misbehavior, when met with understanding, when met with compassion, as opposed to handcuffs and arrests that ultimately lead those kids to a life of prison, is the smart thing to do. So I will distribute this data to you guys. I recommend you table this item because, quite frankly, I don't think you know what you're talking about at this point. And I recommend you read it before making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. So there was a motion made by Mr. Romero. Do we have a second? Or you,
want to change it? Change it?
Richard? Mr. Romero, did you make a motion?
I made the motion.
Correct. You're still staying with the motion, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there was a motion. Do we have a second? No second?
I'll make a motion. Oh. I'll make a motion that we approve one SRO with the general fund as it's presented here, and that we continue the discussion about a second one and funding sources.
I think the first one's already approved, correct?
Correct.
Oh, is it?
It's
Okay,
just the
then
second one.
I pull that then. Yeah, then I stand corrected.
The first
So there
one's
is one
already-
for this year?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
So you strike that?
Yeah, retract that.
You retract that, so
I-
were you gonna say something?
Wait, hold on. Let's clarify. There's 0 SROs right now. So that's, my motion is that,
All right.
just standing clear, corrected. Yes, 0 SROs right now this school year.
There is?
0.
Oh, there's no agreement.
So is it that we need,
Agreement. When we got it, it was a 3-year agreement.
For 17,
Yeah, it was a three, it was a
got
3
one more
years.
year?
18, 19, and 19, 20.
It was a 3-year. I was part of that. Yeah, it was a 3-year.
all right. So then it sounds like we need more information, I guess, to clarify that,
So we'll bring it back for the,
right?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's here for 3 years. I know that for a fact.
But I'm hearing doubt myself.
So you want to re-clarify that motion then, Mr. Castillo, please? That way we could go ahead and,
So I guess I'm confused and I just need to clarify, do we have an agreement with our SRO for this school year or not?
Someone verify that?
Yeah, can we verify that, please?
That's important.
What could have happened is that the contract was presented for 3 years, but the board decided to motion for just a
Is it
1 year.
year to year?
Year to year, so we need to just automatically do the second year
All right.
and third year.
So again, if that's the case, regardless of it,
You know, regardless of what it is, I'd like for them to verify so we can make a decision tonight. And we can take a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
yeah,
we can do that.
let's go ahead and, it is
yeah.
7:53. We're going to go ahead and take a quick recess and reconvene at 8 o'clock.
He only has one copy of these.
That's fine, that's fine. Item K6,
We have a current agreement.
we have a current agreement?
So,
So there is a current agreement for one SRO, so
there's no action needed. And let's continue the discussion. Was that what we want to do, is continue that second discussion?
I think we
So
should
let's
just table it. We'll just table it.
What was the final thing? Is it a 3-year contract, 1-year contract?
There's a 2-year agreement.
2-year agreement?
Correct.
We're still good.
Okay, just for informational purposes, El Central Elementary, their population is 4,000, more or less,
About 6,000 for El Central Elementary.
6,000. That means just elementary, right?
Correct.
Yeah, they have 2 CSOs.
When I
Two
left, they had
zeros.
0.
Huh?
When I left, they had 0.
No, they pay us, so I know they have 2.
So,
We bill them for 2 officers.
I know there's also Central.
Yeah, the high
Union High
schools.
School, and I believe they may
Yeah.
have one for each site.
Right.
Yeah.
so we're going to go ahead and table this item, and we'll bring it back for further discussion. Oh, well, there was a motion to table, correct? Who seconded the motion? Second by Calderon Junior. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Junior, Castillo, myself. Moving on to L, action items, consideration and action approval of the following items. L1, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and the University of California Agricultural Natural Resources for Farm Smart Outreach Program or the 2018-19 school year. I think it's for the,
This
Is
is a
this a
yearly
recurring
agreement, correct,
thing?
with
Up-
UC for the Smart Farm?
I'm
Smart
move
Farm.
to approve.
Second.
motion by Calderon, second by Mr. Castillo. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Junior, Castillo, and myself. Moving on to L2, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and UCSD Early Outreach Program for Academic Services for Calexico High School, Enrique Camarena Junior High School, and Willie Moreno Junior High Schools.
Move to approve.
I'll second. Motion by Calderon, second by myself, Alvarado. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Junior, Castillo, myself. Moving on to L3, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Hollandia Dairy Incorporated for dairy and milk products.
Same Jerry?
It's a different one.
So
The other
what
one was
happened?
Alta Dina.
The company we used to have before LTD.
So we're part of a consortium, and so there was a bid, and Hollandia was the lowest bidder, from what I
Correct.
understand.
Central Union High School District went out to bid on behalf of the Imperial County Cooperative, and Hollandia was issued, they won the bid.
I'll second. Motion by Calderon Junior, second by myself. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Junior, Castillo, myself. Moving on to L4, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Jensen Hughes Incorporated for security surveillance consultant services. This was an item that was tabled for the last
Having
board
one
meeting.
bid, I'm not very comfortable in going with this firm until we do further research.
So you make a motion to
I
table
make a
it?
budget table it.
Well, my question is, what did we do to put it back on the agenda?
Well, it was tabled on the last one to bring it back.
Well,
I
can
mean,
we,
but it was tabled with condition, wasn't it? I mean, that we will get in or look into it?
No,
I mean, because
just,
I
I
remember
don't-
it was $46,000 just to tell us what we need.
Yeah, well, we,
Well, you know what? And I've been thinking about it. I mean, you talk security, you know, I did it all my life. And we go back to stakeholders. I don't know if we've had meetings with our principals, our custodians, our groundskeepers. I think they can really tell us what our school sites need. So if we can get their buy-in into all this, maybe we could save $46,000, because I think it's only just the beginning. That's the initial, and then it goes up to 180 or something like that?
Yes, well, there's 180,000 allocated through the LCAP for the
Oh,
video
okay,
surveillance
it's the
cameras.
allocation, all right. Well,
Yeah.
I think we should start at the bottom, engage our stakeholders, and I think they can tell you where our weakness or weakest points are at in each site. So that's my recommendation.
And I'll make a comment. So I would agree, yeah, we can get the feedback there. But with a project like this, where you're looking at your site maps, your hardware, your infrastructure, it's a little bit beyond their scope of work. And I had a chance, I researched it as well, and I talked to 2 other CTOs, Chief Technology Officers, and then we talked about it, looked at it. Some they've reviewed them, some have actually done this already in their districts. And their feedback was it's very comprehensive, very valuable. Upfront investment will help save money down the road as you begin to purchase equipment. Seamless and stable. It's not cheap, but it'll save money down the road. The other one said it's appropriate for growing concerns for security in schools, be it the surveillance and the security system, and that's what we're talking about.
Well, that's good you brought it up, because Tustin has incorporated all their security cameras and everything within their scope of their technology.
Yes.
And we have that fiber optic. So as soon as we get into this mode, and hopefully this will push it, that we'll be able to have surveillance cameras through our infrastructure.
Right.
And again, back to Eduardo, he's thought about it, and we're ready. So I think it's something that it's just in our near future, I think, and that's where we should go, because it's going to open up a lot of things, not only for our kids, but also for security purposes
I
and
agree.
everything else.
But we gotta have a plan as well.
Yes, yes.
But
Well,
Mr. Castillo, just to piggyback on your comment, yes, we need that. However, have you been to Jefferson? Well, I know you have. Mr. Avina, he already has 3 or 4 cameras going on.
Right.
So,
So that's a perfect example. We have a lot of little hodgepodge systems here and there, but they're not integrated. If we're talking about security for the district that we can monitor from one site, one location online, these systems don't talk to each other, they don't communicate with each other. We're spending money on these other, surveillance systems. That's a waste of money. We're trying to be seamless, be cutting edge, go IP-based for security. It's not just the cameras, but it's also other systems as well. We put up the money up front for a plan, a whole integrated plan, that down the line will save money because we're not spending on all these other systems. That again, later on will be a waste.
I understand what you're saying, but we have the expert. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to point. You feel free to cut off my finger, okay? He is the expert. He can make it happen. He would know how to integrate. You would be able to know how to integrate our systems.
Well,
We have
I
a
think,
long lunch.
So, to me, 46,000 for something that I think our people are more than capable of, I don't think it's worth it.
Well, real
Is
quick,
it worth it for the safety of our students? Yes. But I think thankfully, we have the right people to do, not a job as good as they can, but even a better job that they can do for us. So I think we have the experts here too. So that's my take.
I don't want to cut off anybody, but I think there was a motion that
Yes.
was put out by Mr. Romero to table it.
I'll
Is there any further discussion? If there's not any further discussion in regards to this matter, that way we could go ahead and move on.
right.
Comments? Other comment?
Well,
Comments?
yeah, just by tabling it, is there anything that the board wants us to bring back, or is this pretty much not something to continue entertaining?
Mr. Castillo, what other,
I know that
you
what
reached
we're-
out, what
what
other
we're- what
companies
we're-
was there?
The 2 that I reached out to and talked to, I talked to El Centro, which did this about 2 or 3 years ago and brought people in.
You reach out to them?
And I talked to the CTO of the high-speed network.
So what I do hear, Mr. Romero, mention about the cost, and so I'm wondering, there's 2 things here, right?
It's not much the cost, it's just one company bidding for it.
Right.
It's not the cost.
Right, and so I'm glad you bring that up, because I think we do need a comprehensive plan as far as
Yes.
what direction are we going to move in. I think if we need to go out to see if we can get additional bids, I think it's worthwhile. If for whatever reason we can't, then we'll bring it back to the board.
Yes,
But
definitely.
I would definitely support making sure that we have a comprehensive plan, so that way we know in the direction that we're moving. And not only that, but IT, Eduardo is amazing. I'll say that publicly. But also, he needs support to find out, in regards to the infrastructure that we have in place, what is it that he needs to do on our end to make sure that that system works, as it should be working.
Yes,
This is
we-
part of the discussion right here, so Eduardo's gonna move up and talk real quick.
Good evening, Board. Eduardo Perez, Technology Coordinator. Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words, and really appreciate the confidence that you have in our department. But one of the things that we said is, with that, is that saying that we recommend to have a company to help us to provide a vision. It's more complex. It's more complex than just installing 3-4 cameras in a certain location. We have to make a plan, make sure that where the recordings are going to be saved, how much bandwidth do we need, what type of cameras do we need, if we need a 100-degree camera, what type of speed do we need for the cameras. It is more complex. It is beyond from what we normally work from day to day. And definitely having a company to provide that support and that plan for us, as Mr. Castillo said, not to utilize our funding in a certain matter that probably we might need to change it later on. So by having that plan, it will help us in the long run. I know that it's a considerable amount of funding that we'll need to use. We did our due diligence by posting an RFP for this type of services. We only received one response from this vendor, and but I know that it's a complex project. We're talking about hundreds of cameras, and definitely our recommendation is to have a plan of exactly what type of equipment we're going to be using, and for us to grow with it.
All right.
We need to reach
And
out.
I understand that, Eddie, of course. A plan, you have to have a plan for anything you're gonna do. But part of that plan is actually going out there and getting the input from your stakeholders. I'm not saying it's gonna be done that way, but at least when you're talking to the experts, he just had two responses here that are willing to come in. When this was presented to us, we only had one bidder. So my question is, if he was able to reach out and get two, like what time?
So these aren't companies that are gonna do it. These
What
are
are
people
they?
I talked to regarding getting their input about, do they think this is good
So
for
what
the
are
district?
companies that are what, that are installing?
No, these are two districts,
Okay.
educational districts
Okay,
that have done it
was
already.
it the same vendor? Probably not. Well, I don't know, I mean, I'm
They
asking.
did it 3 years ago.
All right, well, what I'm saying is that we have to get, I mean, yes, hold on, I'm not done. What I'm saying is, you're right, and then everybody's right here, but we have to actually go and start from the bottom and work ourselves up. I mean, I'm good with security. I mean, it's gonna save us a lot of money. We're investing a lot in technology and so forth, and we want these schools to be safe, not only during our school hours, but also after hours. And I understand that. So, with that said, I'm not gonna keep this, because I know we wanna go home, but.
If I
it's
may,
good.
last year, Mr. Calhoun might have been there, in our safety committee, we asked our principals to conduct or form a map of where incidents happen to be able to provide input in terms of where cameras should go. But that's as much as they can do.
Yeah.
Everything else is Eddie, but we have been working with our stakeholders and looking at our incidents and where things are happening around the sites.
And that's good. I
Yeah.
commend you for that.
Go ahead, Jeremy. You want to add something?
Thank you. So when we put this RFP out, we invited 16 companies to come out and bid on this. The reason why we only have one company is because this is all they do. They don't do installation. So if a company that provides installation of cameras were to bid on this, that would exclude them from being able to bid on the services of installing the cameras. So this is a very unique company. This is all they do is help districts or help entities develop a plan to send out to RFP to get the bids to install it. So again, if a camera installer was trying to help us develop the plan, they wouldn't be able to bid on the actual project itself. It's against the law. So that's why we didn't get a lot of bids coming in.
So you have to get a plan before the camera installers come in? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I would think that would be the smart thing to do. Like Mr. Eduardo said, is that if we don't have a plan, we tried this once before. We tried it a year and a half ago?
In our professional opinion, definitely that's the best way to go. Is we definitely need to have a plan. What will be best for our district in terms of equipment and the preparation that we need to do in terms of facilities, technology, and also including our school sites to identify the locations where we want to place those cameras. We have to use all of those factors in order for us to have that part of the plan.
So a company that creates a plan, so we cannot have an RFP for a company to come and create a plan and deliver the goods and services. It doesn't work like that. It has to be a plan and then some.
So what we did, when we did the initial job walk, it was a year and a half ago. It was July. We had, I think it was 18 companies come down. And the idea of that RFP was that we were gonna walk to school sites and they were going to help us decide where these cameras should go. We didn't make it 5 minutes into the high school, the very first stop. And we're talking about people from San Diego, LA, coastal cities, right? It's July. And we made it 5 minutes into the first school site and they said, you need to tell us where they're gonna go. Well, I'm not a camera expert. I brought you guys out here so you could help us build this thing. And they said, no, we're done. And that was it. So that's when we decided collectively as a group that maybe it would be in our best interest, the best interest of the kids, to bring a company out here that's what they specialize in, and they could build the RFP for us.
That makes sense to me. Really.
Yeah, I mean it.
Well, the motion is to table it.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
I second it.
So there's a motion by Mr. Romero to table it, second by Calderon Jr. All those in favor, please state aye.
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 All those against?
Can we give, oh, go ahead.
All those, all those against? Are you good with it, to table it?
Table, yeah.
All right, so all, pass them for table.
And just for clarification, table to bring back with any information?
What do we bring back?
Well, now, I would like to ask the board what is it that we do next, because we do need this safe. So, do we want Carlos to, bring us more information? Do we want to, do a different RFP to include, I don't know, somebody that's gonna come and do the, survey and installation? Because.
Well, he just stated right now that you can't do the survey
so
then
that
and
legally
install.
You cannot do both?
That's why he's come, that's why this individual came over here and gave us, the plan.
Just because it's too many, I mean, I want to consider piloting one school.
Do we
I'd
wanna,
like some
Yeah.
time to research this.
I like the pilot because I had talked to you at that meeting about doing 1 or 2 pilot schools, remember that?
My only concern is that with the LCAP, it's in the LCAP, and this year we need to make sure that whatever items and actions we said we're going to address in the LCAP, that we do, take action on them. So I know we still have time, but it's just something to consider.
Elisa, would it be safe to say to bring it back, like say, for example, on the next board meeting in October? Not this one coming up, but the one in October?
Yeah, it would be fine. I just would want to start using those funds, and we know that there's a need, and we know we might not be able to address every site right now, and we might want to pilot at one site and see if it's a possibility.
Jeremy, can you find out which schools or districts this company has worked with?
Yeah.
Please, I think.
He provided that in the initial one. It's on, but I can start calling other schools and find out if they were happy with the services.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would give me more confidence.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, and
So
Elisa,
all those in favor of tabling was, hold on real quick. All those in favor was Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, and myself.
so Elisa, maybe at our next safety meeting, I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it, so hopefully Mr. Calderon will be able to make it. Yes. Yeah,
For what?
at that meeting, so they can talk, at the safety meeting, so they can talk about it.
The agenda?
And then, yes, and then bring it to us, to our attention for the next board meeting.
have some sites that have some cameras, and you have others that have absolutely none.
Nothing,
I have it done.
okay. All right.
Thank you. L5, rejection of claim, Rafael Plancarte versus Calexico Unified School District.
And that,
Oh,
I second.
So-
With discussion, this is normal to deny.
Correction, there was a motion by Calderon Jr., second by Calderon with discussion.
Yeah, that was my discussion.
Okay, that's it. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Moving on to L6, approval of blueprints and cost estimate for the FRC modernization project.
All right, so I kind of prefaced this a little bit when we brought the neighborhood house, the literacy program in regards to the FRC and, approval of the blueprints and cost estimate in regards to the modernization project that we have there. So I want to give you a little bit more information in regards to what the vision is. And I know we do have Ms. Blancarte here from Behavioral Health Services. So thank you for joining us. And Ms. Sanchez, thank you for being here. So I will hand it over to Ms. Armendariz to talk a little bit about the goals that we have for the FRC.
Good evening, board members. Currently at the Calexico Family Resource Center, which is located at 604 West Birch, we have there's 5 staff members of Calexico Unified School District, which includes, I'll start from the bottom, Dr. Villalobos, who's our homeless facilitator, Ms. Lori Megan Bleck, who's our student well-being facilitator, Eva Lara, clinical social worker, Maria Bravo, the FRC and student service specialist, and myself as the coordinator of the FRC and student services. We also have Department of Social Services. We have 1 eligibility worker that assists our families with Medi-Cal, the TANF, and CalFresh. The TANF is cash aid, and CalFresh is what was before known as food stamps. We also have a full clinic of behavioral health services where there's 2 psychiatrists, 4 therapists, 2 nurses, 4 mental health rehabilitation technicians, or which are case managers, 3 office assistants, and 1 supervisor. But they're not all there every day, Monday through Friday, because they don't all fit there Monday through Friday. Okay, so they divide their time or their days. We only have, for example, 1 school psychiatrist there at a time, and there is a need for 2 school psychiatrists. What's our envision? So how I envision the Family Resource Center. We need additional staff from behavioral health services, like I just said, that we need the additional psychiatrists there and other staff. We need additional support office staff that can be collaborated. We can collaborate with the different agencies that we'll be working with. We also need our social worker, which is Child Protective Services, that comes from Department of Social Services. Before, we had a CPS worker at the FRC 3 times a week, but we don't have the room for that CPS worker. That CPS worker is to prevent children from being removed from the families, and we really need to get this person back at the FRC. What we also envision is having a space where we would have a washer and dryer, because we do have unaccompanied minor youth. That means they're by themselves, so we can help them wash their clothes. We also need an area to receive and display donated clothes. Before, we used to have really good clothes, lightly used and sometimes new clothes, and our families used to go to the FRC and they would just go and take whatever they wanted. We would have community members, even some of our staff, that they would just go to the FRC and donate it, or we will go pick it up. We don't have room for that anymore. Also, part of the envision is to have the parent center, where that parent center would have resources, computers for our families. We would have trainings, we would have meetings, and what I envision is that we divide one of the spaces for childcare with the wall and a window so parents can see the children, but really the children can't get distracted by seeing the parents. It needs to be large enough where there can be an area for play and an area for work. Parent trainings that we currently have, and we're always trying to find a space, is the CAP Council. They teach the incredible years, and we're always trying to figure out where they're going to be. The same with the Sure Helpline. Currently, we have a Club de Lectura that has about maybe 30 members, and they have, before they used to use the FRC, but they've outgrown even the FRC, and now they're still using the hopefully new FRC location every Friday, and they meet for about 2 hours.
we do need an additional clinical social worker. I have never brought that to anybody's attention because we really don't have the room. Our goal is also, if we can't go that route, we're hoping, and you've already approved for the interns for social workers, we're gonna need space for that too, for the collaboration with them. Also, I'm hoping that we can also bring in the exercise gym and nutrition clinic that is sponsored by the Heffernan Memorial. So what I envision is that one of the trailers is full of equipment that is provided by the Heffernan Memorial. They have a trainer, they have a nutritionist, and so that exercise room will be for children or for our students that are referred from doctor's offices. And then also we can have the nutritionist provide trainings to the parents and to the students. One other thing that if we do do that, I will go to the Heffernan Memorial Health District, and hopefully what they'll be able to do is provide us with the outside obstacle courses. Heffernan Memorial has provided obstacle courses throughout the community, and hopefully they'll be doing the same thing for the new FRC. Another thing that I would like to do is with the health department, collaborate. They have a nutrition education program. We can bring in the health department also to help us with those nutrition classes for parents and students. So they would need an office space. Another thing that hopefully with the health department, they'll be able to have the one-on-one meetings with parents whose children have been identified as children with that are obese. Another thing that I'm also hoping to do is those trailers is divide them into office space so we can share the office space with different agencies. There's agencies that don't need the office space from Monday through Friday. They just might need it once a week for a few hours. So we rotate who uses the trailers in those office spaces. I'm hoping to be able to bring the health department and even ICOE. There's 3 programs out that we have in the Valley that help us with our teen parents. So that's additional office space that we would need. Hoping to also be able to collaborate either with the health department or the Calexico Wellness Center, that we can have like an on-site clinic where where they can administer immunizations. We don't have the health department in Calexico anymore. So hopefully we can bring them in, or the Calexico Wellness, to administer the immunizations for our students and the physicals, and at the same time we can have them also certify them to be able to administer the TB test for our staff. Also, I've already included the Calexico Neighborhood House in this plan where they can use the office space, but they do need it Monday through Friday for 3 staff members, and they also need some some storage space. Also want to be able to invite Amigos de Alejandro also to use office space maybe once a week. And they assist us with our families that have children with cancer, okay? Another thing that I would like to bring in also is CRLA. And we used to have a lot of this information here. We used to have these services at the FRC, but we just outgrew them. So CRLA helps our families facing evictions. They help them through that whole court process. They also help families that have been denied medical insurance or Social Security. Hopefully we can also bring Catholic Charities to help our families with immigration services. We also provide free income tax services through the VITA program at the FRC. Last year we weren't able to do that because the office spaces were all used. So they provide free income tax services to our families, and they're certified through the IRS. The Consulado has a variety of services that they're willing to go with us at our new location. So I put questions, and before questions, I'm really hoping that you make this 13-year dream a reality.
Well, that's a whole building.
That's the whole new location.
That's a whole 50-story building that you're
No, because we'll make it happen. You say go for it, and you'll love the new FRC.
Well, Ms. Armendariz, first of all, I want to commend you for your hard work and dedication to service all these people that you are. When I first came on board, I remember showing up and you had this vision.
Yeah.
And you know what, Carlos, thank you for getting on board and making it happen. We're due, and the only question I had for you now. You mentioned space like 8 times, so I'm just concerned that you have all the space that you need.
You know what? I'll make the space, even if I put
Okay,
10
well, I'm
cent
just
out there.
saying
And
because I know it's high real estate here.
I don't have space right now. If you relocate us, we will make that happen.
Well, and I'm concerned because I want to make sure that your dream comes true.
All right, good.
And that's what I'm looking at, because we don't want to start handing out spaces when we don't really have them. You know?
No, for right now, don't hand out any more spaces. You know, let's
Okay,
stay
so
with
it's already
this.
set.
Yes.
What you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed. And to second what Mr. Calderon said, congratulations, because you are the one that is doing, not just you, but you are spearheading this project. So congratulations. And
Thank you, I appreciate
I'm glad
it.
we have you here doing what you're doing. So.
Just vote on the relocation,
With
and I'll
that-
continue to
with
do
that
it
said,
more.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Let me second the discussion.
Go ahead.
So I like it. I like the plan. I'm looking at the site plan right now, and it's, the use of the old campus is nice and all the programs. So, yeah, I'd like to see it happen. Let me ask, the funding sources, so let's talk about the funding now to make it happen.
So I don't know if you want to go back to the,
And then also the sustainability piece.
Okay. As far as funding, we have behavioral health here with us, and so this is a shared project. And if you'll see the cost, so behavioral health will be paying half of it, or more than half of it, more than half of the cost, and they will be installing a new parking lot. They will be paying half of their cost, which is 700 and something thousand dollars. 705. And so they will be, yeah, so half of it they will pay upfront, and then the rest will be paid in 3 years. As far as for our portion of the cost, we already have that allocated in the LCAP.
Okay.
And the sustainability piece of it, then it would be like any other facility that the district owns. We have to upkeep our facilities, making sure that, they're in
So
working
that would be
condition.
like the landscaping, the air conditioners.
We still do
M&L,
that,
custodial.
whether the building is occupied or vacant, we still do that.
So do we have additional staff at this site, a custodian?
Right now, since FR Food Services is there, and also the assessment center is there, they already do those services.
I just want to make sure we can sustain it, support it, because if we're pulling AC techs from other sites, we have additional units here we'll be maintaining. I just want to make sure we can sustain the site and the facilities.
you know what, part of the information that you have there, behavioral health currently pays for the cleaning of the FRC. I'm pretty sure that what was submitted, that they will also provide the cleaning and security. Right, Ms. Blancarte? Okay.
I think it's a no-win situation.
Well, thank you. There was a motion, any more discussion? So there was a motion by myself, seconded by Mr. Castillo. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Mr. Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
So moving on now to L7, authorization to seek bids for roof replacement at Godfrey Gym.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Calderon. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Moving on to L8, approval for increasing food services personnel and increase in staff hours.
What?
All right.
Can you tell us?
Carlos.
So this is coming from food services, and so there is a request to increase staff personnel. Gilbert can give a little bit more information in regards to the actual position, but there's been definitely a growth when it comes to our food services. And one of the things that I can't help is commend Gilbert for all the work that he's been doing for us when it comes to food services. And when he got here, we were basically able to charge our meals at 70%, right? So in the last few years since he's been here, the reimbursement now that we have for our meals is at 100%. And so that is a testament of how hard Gilbert has worked. The other part of it is when we have had audits from the state, they've commended Gilbert for the work that he's done. And in fact, we don't have to even be under review now because of the great, audit that he performed the last time that they were here. So with that, he is proposing some additional positions. There are services that we continue to provide in food services, and so I'll have Gilbert talk to the board about what those specific positions are that he's requesting.
Good evening. The request is to increase hours on a few employees. One of them is our delivery driver. We have 2 drivers currently that work for our, that do work for they're 8-hour employees. They do work for the school nutrition programs, which are our breakfast program, our lunch, and our snack, and just our breakfast and our lunch. And they're the ones that take all the food from one of the 2 main kitchens, which is either Dianza or Willie Moreno, and distributes it to the rest of our 12 sites. Those drivers also, receive merchandise. Our 3rd driver that we have is a part-time driver, a 4-hour driver. He supports our supper program under CACFP, Child Adult Care Food Program. As our department has grown, we have increased volume of purchases that we have from several purveyors like Shamrock, Cisco, Fulton. We also get a lot of product from our commodities from USDA through the Promoted Distribution Center, and we've had to, we'll sometimes do allow extra hours to our drivers and some food service assistant ones to assist with putting away the volume of food and non-food items that we get. It's gotten to the point where it's almost a regular, issue where we're giving too many hours, where it's something that there's a need, where we need not only just to put our away any and all orders that we get, but also delivery. Now that we've also included Valley schools and El Centro and Ocotillo schools, they are helping with by paying for the delivery fee. We have a delivery fee for them, but also that's an additional site that we've added to our regular services that we do. So that's the need for the 4-hour driver to make it an 8-hour. As far as county assistant 1 position, we have a 6-hour position that would like to make it an 8-hour position. So this is county assistant position. Again, the amount of volume of food that we get, being part of the co-op, we do line item bids. Line item bids, we have over 200 items that we purchase, and we get better pricing being part of the co-op. And that's also needs us to be very vigilant, making sure that we're getting the correct pricing, and our supervisors and our staff is ordering the correct items, and we're not paying extra, for something that we should be getting a discounted price. So it does take additional hours just to look at every invoice, making sure that we're getting our rebates where we need to, making sure that that we're reconciling the invoices with statements with our actual our order guides, and that also is taking up a lot of time. And the secretary position that I'm proposing to hire for an 8-hour position, we have a need for there's to be audit ready at all times, so that right now there's an issue with we create transport records, we create production records, what we're going to produce in food, but we don't reconcile with what we're ordering. So really, we need to not only when we're creating our production records, we need to know, what we're claiming, reconciling with that, making sure that are we making enough food for what we're claiming that we're claiming. Also, did we order enough food for what we're claiming? And that reconciliation process helps us find out, number one, not if we're claiming it correctly, because we always, err in the to not overclaim, but more of, is there a waste? And that's something that we need to just be more careful in our management of our funds, so that we're not wasting, or theft is happening as a result of over ordering. But there's a lot of administrative duties that I think are needed for our department, and Secretary 8-hour position would fit that. And our budget doesn't affect the general fund. We have our own cafeteria budget, and as Mr. Gonzalez mentioned, when I started working here, we were, for 3 years before I started working, we were at a free rate of about between 78 and 79%. First year, we went into CEP for 4 sites. We also went to the SEMA summer feeding option, so we can get a high reimbursement rate. We went to 81% that first year I was here. Second year, we went district-wide for CEP. We were 86%. Then third year, 93.73. And this year, we're going to be at 100%. So we are getting additional funds from that. And, when I look at just for being part of CEP, you don't have to reapply each year. You're good for 4 years. So we're at 100% for 4 years. It's just that we apply each time so that we can reset that, so we have that 4-year buffer, so that if anything happens with regulations where they want to remove something, at least we know what's happening 4 years from where we're at. Are there any questions?
I got a couple questions.
Go ahead.
A couple questions then. So your cafeteria fund right now, it's not a negative, right?
No, sir.
It's positive?
Yes, sir. Over 2 months, net cash resource, we're allowed to have up to 3 months. We will have 3 months by the end of the year.
So positive. So these additional positions and hours, would that come from this cafeteria fund?
Yes, sir.
It'll sustain itself?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. The other question, you mentioned Valley and Ocotillo? Valley and Ocotillo you're delivering?
Valley and Ocotillo schools.
Brawley and El Centro?
El Centro. Brawley is Del Rio.
Okay, so El Centro you're delivering up there?
Yeah.
Okay,
And we're getting a delivery fee.
perfect.
And we're also claiming their meals.
The meals and all?
Yeah, and that's about 100,000 a year.
Okay, and then the last one, are we doing breakfast in the classroom at any sites?
No, sir.
Is that something to explore?
It's really something that I would love to do it, but it's something I would really want to get the principals initiating it, because it takes coordinating, getting the teachers to do something that they're not going to do, regularly, and something also that the custodians need to be part of. But there's extra, trash are going to be taken out, extra duties that the teachers have to do, because the biggest problem with breakfast in the classroom, and we had 2 schools here in the district in Imperial Valley that they had funding taken away. They had the whole year of funding taken away because teachers weren't doing the point of service at the what they're supposed to. They're supposed to count a meal after a student grabs it. And a lot of them are just doing by either attendance, rosters, or any other way. And when they do an administrative review, they go to different sites. Sometimes they want to be slick and say, "Oh, we trained this teacher. We know which teachers do it right," and they try to go to the teacher that they think they want to show. But the CDE people will say, "Oh, I want to go to the other classroom or whatever," or they're still longer. And when they notice things that aren't being documented correctly, that'll strike a red flag, and then they'll see more. And I've seen, again, at least here in the Imperial Valley, the two schools that were doing breakfast in the classroom got funds taken away.
So again, this request is being funded through the cafeteria fund?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Entirely.
Thank you.
I do have a comment to make. Like many of us, the first weeks of school, we all went out and visited campuses and everything.
Yes, sir.
And the reason I'm making this comment is that 3 years ago, when I first started, it came to my attention that we had some issues in your area, but not as, I mean, we're doing great. I mean, you mentioned increasing volume of food services, allowed overtime for drivers and food services to do their work and so forth.
Yes, sir.
Helping other schools and so forth. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, when I brought this issue, in which I'm about to say, is we had a lot of employees with 2-hour shifts only.
Yes, sir.
And I was told that was done and done away with. Long behold, I mean, I've gone to some of the sites, and there's approximately like 22 staff still with 2 hours.
Not 22, but there are, we do have 2-hour people.
Yeah, but I thought we had done away with them, and now we're still, I mean, the last count I had, it was 22. Approximately 22, let me put it that way. So it's something that, I mean, if we're gonna increase volume, I think we should consider to help these other, I mean.
One of the things that I did when I started, I remember my very first board meeting when you guys were gonna vote for my position. We had a doctor here that had a student that had a son that was a student in high school, and he complained about being an open campus. And you guys, I remember very very clearly that you guys said, well, it's because we don't have the capacity to serve every student. So one of the things that I did is I hired 2-hour employees to create additional points of service. Points of service where somebody just shows up, stocks up a cart, takes it out there, serves, comes back, breaks it all down, washes the dishes. Takes 2 hours. There's no way of giving more hours to somebody that's already working there and split them to go to 2 different sites. So you had to create those positions. We created 3 points of service, additional points of service at the high school, 2 additional ones at Willie Moreno, an additional one at De Anza. And that alone gave us about, let's see, about 20,000 additional meals in the year. And that was a big jump from my first year from the year I started to the first year. We've been pretty consistent with as far as the amount of meals we serve, but our income, our revenue has increased, not because of we're serving more students, because there's been some years where we have less students, but we're still making more money because of our CEP. But we had the need for those 2-hour employees. Now, when I proposed that, I did speak to the union, the old leadership before the one that's currently on there. And when we talked about that, I said, yeah, I'm interested in doing this. And they said, we don't like 2-hour employees. I said, well, I'm totally interested in, if you guys give me the chance, we can increase those hours and have them do some other items, other things that will add value to what we currently have with our employees. When I brought that up, we had new CSEA leadership. They didn't want to give more hours to 2-hour employees. They wanted to give it to.
What I'm getting at, Mr. Venegas, and to clear the record, I wasn't here when you were hired. You were already hired when I came in.
Yes, sir.
But what I'm saying is, you're asking our staff to do more volume with less hours. That's where I'm getting at. I mean, you have ladies that are 60, 70 years old, still working 2 hours. And back then, they had only 10 years, 15 years working with 2 hours. So my question is, I'm not telling you how to do your business, but to consider, I mean, here you want me to give you a secretary, and I understand because you want to capture all the monies that you can and so forth, but you have a positive budget. So my question is, because I've gone to most of your cafeterias, and the first thing they say is, we're here only for 2 hours. We show up, we do what we got to do, and we're gone. And it just leaves the other staff that are there with the extra responsibility of what you just told us.
Our only 2-hour employees are our supper employees and our high school employees, which
again, I'm not attacking you. I just want you to consider it, because I mean, 2 hours, really, how much can you get done in 2 hours?
I agree.
So just to bring that one back, I know that we sat down with CSEA extensively, and we did negotiate, and so we did have input. I'm sorry, Gilbert. We did have input from CSEA that was present, specifically from the I guess lead when it comes to the cafeteria, and so we did take all of that into consideration.
And I understand, but I'm very passionate because a hungry kid will not be able to study.
Yeah.
I understand that clearly. But I mean, when we have these people just not being able to be productive in 2 hours, I think it's a waste of time.
Yes.
And maybe you should go back and look at how things are working out and consider even, I don't know, increasing the hours, getting more staff, I don't know. But it's something, because here you mentioned 3 things that caught my eye. And I mean, if we're gonna make them do more, we should look at maybe they need more hours. Or maybe need to change their services the way to meet the need.
Yeah, and we have increased hours to 41 employees. We've also, since I've been here, added 10 new positions.
Okay.
And it wasn't, some to our employees, but other different positions as well. And yes, we will, that's something we're definitely looking at. And that'll be something that we'll try to add more value to what we're doing, the services we're offering to the students, and we'll bring that up with a increase in hours to our employees.
Well, I'm just asking you to look at it.
Yes, sir, I
Because
will.
the workload has increased, and maybe someone needs to take a survey or something.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but then also here, he's asking for additional hours for the delivery driver, the accountant assistant, and of course, undersecretary. Those 2 employees do a different task than what he's asking for.
With that said, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any more discussion? If not, that we continue. So motion by myself, second
Well,
by,
the discussion, so what you're saying with these staff, you're gonna be able to recover more funds, correct? That's what you're saying?
I believe so.
In short names terms? With increasing the hours of the driver and getting another, how many secretaries do you have?
I have, this will be the first secretary.
Oh, first secretary?
We have, I believe, I don't know if you were given a list of our current positions that we have, but we have a office clerk that works directly with the supervisors. That is a 6-hour position. We have an account assistant 1 that handles the POS software, the SMP cost of goods, CACFP cost of goods, non-program foods cost of goods. Helps us with the CACFP and SMP claims, does deposits. This other account assistant 1 does the accounts payable and payroll, and this new position, and again, the extra hours would be for the account assistant 1, and the secretary position would be a new position. And then we have an administrative assistant that handles PARs, reconciling attendance, and non-program foods billing. And then we have all the food service assistant 1s, cashiers, food service assistant 2s, the drivers, and the 2 full-time drivers and the 1 part-time driver that we're trying to get into make a full-time driver.
So how many staff total?
80. 80, sir.
8?
80.
80?
Huh? With me, it's 80.
so with that said, there was a motion, seconded by Mr. Calderon. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All those, well, pass 5-0. So Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Thank you. Moving on to L9, second reading and adoption of revised board policy, administrative regulation, and exhibit 5125.1, release of directory information.
Second reading. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Castillo, seconded by Calderon Jr. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All those in favor, Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Moving on to L10, second reading and adoption of revised board policy and administrative regulation 1312.3, uniform complaint procedures.
Again, second reading. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Motion by Castillo, second by myself. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor, Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Moving on to L11, provisional internship permit for certificated personnel Francisco J. Castro for the 2018-2019 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Calderon Jr., seconded by Calderon. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All those in favor, Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Moving on to L12, variable term waiver for certificated personnel bilingual authorization Spanish for the 2018-2019 school year.
Move to approve.
I'll second. Motion by Calderon, second by myself. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Resolution, L13, resolution regarding disposition of surplus asset, non-asset custodial equipment at M&O Department.
So moved.
Motion by Romero, seconded by Castillo. Roll call vote, Mr. Romero.
Yes.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes.
Mr. Calderon Jr.
Yes.
Mr. Castillo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. L14, approval of the 2017-2018 unaudited actuals and 2018-2019 revised budget.
Good evening, board members. As Javier is setting that up, I just wanted to start by recognizing or, giving recognition to the staff at the Business Services Department. This was not just my job, my work. It was also, and here with us is Cesar Sanchez. He's our accountant, and he truly is the one in charge of all the restricted side of the budget. And so I just want to commend him and thank him, because I wouldn't have been able to close the books if it wasn't for him. And that's why he's here today. And if some questions do come up as far as our restricted side, I wanted him to be here and be able to speak to you, because he's a real asset to the department. And sometimes he is hidden in a corner and doing all the work, but nobody sees him. But he does a great job, and I just wanted to thank him for that. And also the AP clerks and payroll. I mean, everybody is just fantastic. So we closed the books for 17-18, and part of the closing is going back to 16-17. We go to prior year, and what we do in the prior year is we clean up any liabilities or accounts receivables that were not received. And some of the terminology I'll be explaining as we move into the presentation. Again, 17-18 is a budget that I did not put together, and I did not manage it during most of the year. So when closing the books, it was a lot of doing research. Why were certain things, set up in a way or certain way? Let me start by doing the budget assumptions. Here are the COLA, the GAP percentages, the STIRS percentages. We closed with a 1447. Now we're paying 1628. At PERS, it was 15.5 on 17-18. Now it's at 18%. And I put a plus 7 because for those employees that we pay EPMC, employer paid contributions. We have lottery unrestricted that we use to pay for subs. Yes?
How many employees do we have on that +7?
+7, we have a lot. I think it would be easier to say how many we don't. And I think it's about 40 to 60 employees that we don't pay PERS on, but the rest we do. Then we have lottery restricted, which we pay textbooks with, one-time funds, and then the mandated grant, block grant that we receive. Our ADA, we closed at 8,930.42. That's how we closed. What were the significant changes in closing the books in 17-18? We completed the emergency repair projects, so $2.8 million worth of repairs. You won't see those expenditures in the new year because they ended last year. We also completed the clean energy project, $3.6 million, and also it was the end of the educator effectiveness grant. So there was $500,000 and some more dollars in carryover, which ended last year, so you won't see those expenditures. So overall, there's about $6 million worth of expenditures that you won't see on the 18-19 because the projects were completed or the grant ended. So what are the significant changes for the 18-19 revised budget? This is in addition to what I presented back in June. And before I go into this list, I want to clarify and I want to make aware the board. Sometimes I get requests to increase budget. And so I need to clarify that nor Mr. Gonzalez or I have the authority to increase budget. Only the board has that authority. And that's why, and how do we accomplish those budget increases? Through the approval of a revised budget. We can move monies from one line to the other and increase budget in a line item as long as it stays within the board approved budget. And so for the record, during budget adoption, the total budget was around $119 million. What you will see right now, it's 121, and that's because of all of these changes. And so again, nor Mr. Gonzalez or I have the authority to increase budget, only the board has that authority through board action. So when you approve new positions, when you approve construction projects, then that's when I have, I have the authority to do that in the system. Otherwise, I cannot just do it myself with no board action. So what were the changes? There's included in this revision, there's $150,000 for Calexico High School supplies. There's $200,000 for roof repairs. There's $400 for special ed contribution because of all the FTEs listed below. And also, I put in the $350,000 that behavioral health will pay in a period of 3 years. However, the project needs to be completed this year. And so that needs to be in there as an expenditure. And I apologize for the small letters. I'm gonna start with the unrestricted revenue. In June, we had estimated $71 million. We ended with 70.3. And that is because after we adopted the budget, the governor signed the final state budget, and the gap decreased. Yes.
Mr. President, I would like to extend the meeting until 10 o'clock.
Motion by Calderon, second by myself. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, thank you. So the gap funding decreased by 2.2%. So that then in turn decreased our revenue by $1.4 million. Also on the Medi-Cal reimbursement, you see a decrease of almost $234,000, and that is something that we're trying to correct during the 18-19 school year. And the reason why it decreased so much is because we did not submit transportation claims. So we can go back 1 year and request those reimbursements. So that's something that we're gonna correct this year.
So these are your mall dollars,
Yes.
and are they reimbursing us?
They're not reimbursing us as we would like to because the claims are not being submitted. And this is something that we've discussed with Mr. Price. He's working towards, reaching higher claim percentage, but it has to be the providers who have to do it. And getting that to happen, sometimes it's just difficult.
And we're still working with Orange County?
Paradigm? Who is it? Oh, they changed. They changed. Okay, so overall, there was a decrease of $651,000, and from estimated actuals to the real closing of the books in unrestricted revenue. On the restricted side, there is a summary of all the restricted resources, Title I, migrant, special ed. For Title I, it's just good to note that difference, the $619,000 difference, most of it is going to be carryover or deferred revenue. That means we got the cash, but we did not spend it, so it'll be carried over into the next year. However, most of the restricted carryover needs to be spent by September 30th. here is a continuation of all the restricted resources. Overall, there is a difference of $1.7 million less than what we had anticipated. Again, some of it is carryover, deferred revenue, or restricted ending fund balance, which I'll explain later in the presentation. And this is from restricted revenue. So again, this is a quick summary. We had estimated we were going to receive a total of $117.8 million. When we closed the book, it was actually 115.4. So overall, there's a difference of $2.4 million that we could not recognize. It doesn't mean that we did not get it or we were not awarded. It's just that accounting-wise, we cannot recognize that revenue in the 17-18 year. We have an accrual system, and so since we did not make those expenditures, we cannot recognize the revenue. It's just a very complex procedure, but just saying that we can only recognize 115 instead of the 117. In the case, like, for example, migrant, ACES, the ag grants, those are those do not allow carryover. So if, for example, I'm going to go back to migrant. In migrant, there was in the regular program, there was a $7,000 difference. There was also a $21,000 difference in summer, in the migrant summer program. So that means that we did not spend those funds.
How much was it again?
21,000. And we're a regional, we're part of a region, and so a lot of these funds, Mrs. Crawford at ICOE will redistribute those at the regional level. And I know it looks like we did not spend the money, but overall the migrant program spends more than their allocation requires. So we are spending more than, we are already spending our allocation plus more. Based on our
what you're saying, we returned $21,000.
But yes, but because the region is giving us more money than than our required allocation.
Okay.
Yeah. Based on our migrant population, we are already spending that amount of funds plus more. Okay. So now we're gonna go into the unrestricted expenditures. We covered revenue. So overall revenue, there was $2.4 million less than what we had anticipated. Now we're gonna go into unrestricted expenditures. Yes.
Can I interrupt you before? You said there was a fund that we had to spend by September. What fund was that one?
That's your categorical, and Cesar can also explain, because we go through something that's called CARS. And we have spring releases and winter releases, and that's how we tell the federal government about our categorical and restricted programs. Because the philosophy behind it is that whoever, the kids that generated those funds need to receive those services. And so they give us either a 12-month or 15-month or even sometimes 18-month or 24-month time frame to spend down the awards.
Okay, so you're saying it's not this September, it's the following September?
This September.
This September?
September 30th. The funds must be expended or encumbered in order for us to meet the carryover threshold. We cannot carry over more than 15% of the award from the prior year.
Okay, so where can we spend these funds?
It's all based on the school plan, the SPSA, and those the board adopted those in June. So the sites already know how to spend it. It's in their plan.
So, again, it looks like 619.
Yeah, it's a lot of funds.
Is that already going to be encumbered?
Actually, Title I, and I'll give you the summary of all the carryovers. Title I carried over about $900,000. Yeah.
Oh, and like you said, the principals already know that they need to.
Yes. Yeah, no, Cesar is very good at giving them their allocation and making sure that they know how much they have.
Okay.
Okay. So now we're gonna go and look at expenditures, how we closed the year with as far as expenditure, and this is the fun part. We had estimated we were going to spend $88.5 million. Well, we actually spent only 82.1. So that means that we did not spend $6.3 million on the unrestricted side of the house. And why did that happen? I need to explain this. It did not happen for various reasons. One reason is because in the 16-17 school year, we booked the liability. And what does that mean? We said at the end of 16-17 that we were going to spend, and I have Mrs. Randall set up a liability of $3.3 million towards negotiation settlements. Because at the end of 16-17, the assumption was that somehow we were going to pay that, right? But during 17-18, it did not happen. And so the only thing that did happen was the ACT settlement. And so from that 3.3 liability that was booked in 16-17, only $2 million got spent. So there was a leftover liability of $1.2 million. The only way that we can reflect true accounting numbers is to bring back that expenditure that we said in 16-17 is close. So I can't make any adjustments during that year. The only year that I can clean that up is during the 17-18 that I'm closing. So the way to reverse that is to take away expenditures from this year. So that's why the $6.3 million, 1.2 of it or $1.3 million of it is from a prior year liability because we did not settle with CSCA. On top of that, during the 17-18 school year, budget-wise, we had accounted for possible negotiations. Well, those did not happen. So again, the budget was not spent. Also, LCAP, there was some LCAP that did not happen. And that's why Mrs. Ramirez is saying it is very important that if we said we were going to do certain things in our LCAP, that we do work towards spending those funds. And a lot of that happened as well. Budget-wise, I tried to stick at estimated actuals. I tried to stick, the closest I could to what I thought we were going to spend. But then again, I did not drafted that budget, so I don't know why there were certain amounts budgeted in there. But it is good that we're going to be able to build some reserves due to this. And you'll see at the end of the presentation, even though we did not spend 6.3, our budget did increase by 6 million in this year. Yes.
So you were talking about how we did not spend the money on negotiations.
Yes.
But what about when we spend those, when we negotiate and we need to spend those monies, then what happens?
And I'm going to show you how I did that. We assigned it.
Okay.
We did assign it because even though it's not reflected in the financials, it is something that we know that somehow it's going to happen sometime.
But you said that you couldn't fix the books from 16-17, so.
I had to reflect that on 17-18, and I also I accounted for that in the 18-19 budget.
Okay.
And you'll see that how that's done.
Okay.
It's part of the components of ending fund balance.
Okay.
You assign it. Okay, so moving forward, now we have restricted expenditures on 17-18. The overall, see, this one is a bit tighter. The estimated actuals match closer to the unaudited actuals, and that is because, again, making sure that the $1.9 million difference that was not spent, what happens is that it carries over to the next school year in the form of carryover, restricted balance, or deferred revenue. Okay? So here's a quick shot of both combined restricted and unrestricted. Again, $2.4 million less in revenue and $8.2 millions dollars better off. I mean, we didn't spend it. We just didn't spend it. We had estimated a total expenditures of 123 million. We only spent 115. Okay, so overall there's a 5.8 million dollars that will go into the beginning fund balance. And that's 17-18. Here is something that you don't clearly see from the revenue or the expenditures, but your contributions from the general fund to restricted programs increased by $559,000. Why? If you look at the emergency repair program, we had said that it was going to be a contribution of $345,000. When I closed the book, it was actually $1 million. Why? Because in the budget, when we were doing adopted budget, Mrs. Randall had budgeted for possible revenues from the T-Mobile contracts. Well, those did not happen last year. I hope they happen this year. I mean, we did go through the agreement. So again, I couldn't recognize the revenue in the 17-18, so I had to do a contribution.
But what do you mean it did not happen? We did not get paid? Is that what you're
We
saying?
haven't been paid. No, we haven't received that money.
Isn't there a check and balance in your system to check and follow up?
No, we are checking. We are just waiting for the money, and it will happen on the 18-19. But for 17-18, in order to close the books, I have to give a contribution in order to cover those expenditures.
But isn't there a contract with them? Didn't we enter into a contract where they said they would pay?
They are gonna pay about 400 or 500.
Yes,
Yeah, but overall, the repairs cost more money than what we're gonna receive in the T-Mobile contracts.
How much? That was what? 691.
The contribution was 691, and again, I'm still researching this resource. So hopefully there will be more revenues coming in this year to cover for the deficit that happened last year. Yes, this is just a summary of how the books were closed. But I'll keep you updated because yes, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, and their towers are up already, correct? Or
I don't know when they're gonna start those
they
projects, but I know that we just approved the agreement 2 board meetings ago for T-Mobile.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, the lighting that they were gonna assist us with and so forth, we paid it out of our pocket,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna reimburse us.
Yes.
And they haven't reimbursed us.
I haven't seen the check.
Wow.
Yeah. What else happened here? So overall, we had said 13.8, now it's 14.2. So your total general fund contributions to restricted resources is about 12.47% of your total budget for 17-18. So now we're gonna go in. That was the end of 17-18. So overall, we closed the books with pretty much a balanced budget. Overall, it was only a negative $243,000 difference between revenues and expenditures, but all of that extra revenue that we had anticipated to deficit spend, now it goes into the beginning fund balance for 18-19. So now let's go into 18-19. This is original budget is what I presented back in June, and now this is the revised budget now after closing. So after closing, a lot of this $2.7 million increase to revenue, most of it is because of the EPA and because of Governor Brown funding LCAP at 100%. Back then when we presented original budget, we went off of the May revised assumptions. But now after the Governor Brown adopted the budget, then there's shifts. Also included in there is deferred revenue, and then the IID grant for 600. So overall, the deferred revenue from Title I was about $600,000 as well. It's kind of confusing because I said carryover is about $1 million, but embedded in that million are the $600,000 of deferred revenue. Deferred revenue, again, is we received the cash, but we did not make the expenditures. So technically, we owe that money until the point where we make the expenditures. If by the CARS reporting, we don't meet the expenditure side, then we would have to return the money. That's why it is important that we spend the funds by September 30th. Yeah, they just paid us up front.
And that's
what it-
600,000.
Carryover
Give
is
or
$1
take,
million, yes.
$1 million.
Yeah. Okay. And here's a little summary of what was deferred. As far as deferred revenue, there's 914,000 on the Career Technical Education Incentive Grant. Claudia, just to clarify, this will go towards the CTE culinary project. Some of it.
Right now, approximately 600 of that 914 is designated for the company.
Yes. So we will, yeah. So we will spend that. And that one, we have a deadline to spend up to June 30th of 2019. So we still have the whole year for that.
June 30th?
Yes, right? And then carry over Title I, there's 932. Title III, the immigrant part of it, there's 56,000. And Title III, there's 296. So overall, there's $2.1 million in those two categories.
On this CTE project,
Mm-hmm.
you said we have to spend the monies before June of 30 of next year, correct?
2019.
All right, and it's pending DSA now.
Yeah,
As long
so
as we spend it, we're good, correct?
yeah, and I know that Mrs. Montaño's working on other projects or other uses for the funds, but overall, this will be spent by the end of the year.
I mean, because we're waiting on DSA to approve the project.
Yes.
That could take months. So my question is, as long as the construction is in mode construction and we reach June 30th, we're good to go.
Oh, yes, and I already have invoices from Mr. Sanders' office that we will pay out of this.
And the only reason I'm asking is because we have the parking lot situation that I don't want the same thing to happen.
Yes.
That those monies are spent by
Those
the,
to be encumbered by June 30th.
yes.
Yeah, as long as they're
spent.
encumbered.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So we should break ground before June 30th, I'm
Oh,
sure.
I hope so,
So,
yes.
okay, all right.
This is a restricted ending balance. So restricted ending balance is different. This one means that there is there is just funds that are carried over from year to year. And one of the areas that we're having trouble spending down is the special ed mental health. We receive about $375,000 a year. But if you see, we have $1 million in restricted ending balance. That one does not have a deadline. But what it does is we get the cash, but we don't make the allowable expenditures. And that's why the balance is growing. But Mr. Price and I have been meeting in order to make better use of it.
So how would you use it? In services provided to our
Yes,
kids?
it's very limited and restrictive as to how you can use these dollars, and so that's why sometimes we have a lot of problems spending them down, because you can't just spend it on any kind of service. It has to be tied strictly to what the funding source allows. Yeah. But then what happens is that you have the cash, and we use that cash for cash flow purposes. I mean, it is a true statement.
We spent a significant amount of dollars last year.
Yes, we did.
They were put towards purchase of assessments and testing kits that were outdated, and so they were properly used. And we had the benefit as our students are now using up-to-date materials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. College readiness block grant, I'm not sure about the deadline for that, but there is a restricted ending balance as well with that one. So overall, there's $1.3 million of restricted ending balance. Okay. So now we go to expenditures. Again, the expenditures change from original budget to revised budget from 119 to 121, so around $2.1 million worth of increases. Most of it was through carryover again. And why does that happen? Because in our categoricals, our expenditures must match our revenue, and so that's why the expenditure side grows as the revenue side grows. Included in that are the additional FTE to special ed and all of the items I listed on the second slide of all the increases in the 18-19 budget. Okay. So now what I'm showing you here is 17-18 unaudited actuals versus the revised 18-19 budget. Overall, even though you had savings in 17-18, or so-called savings because we just did not deficit spend as much as we thought we would, your overall budget did increase up for about 4.9%. If you see, your certificated salaries went up by 5.9%. Your classified salaries went up by 2.8%. We knew benefits was gonna go up at least, a 9% because of insurance premiums going up. And also STRS and PERS retirement rates going up. Supplies also went up by $2.9 million. They went up by 54.6%. And I know that right now we have, conversations about supplies budgets being cut, but overall your overall budget grew because of LCAP, LCAP priorities, other priorities that have been, that were drafted into the budget. And so your construction, your capital outlay, which is your construction, went down by the $6.1 million because of the completion of all the other projects that we listed at the beginning. So again, as far as the supplies, I budgeted conservatively, and if after January, when the governor proposes the next year's budget, and if you feel that the sites need more support, then that is a time when the board can decide whether to increase the budget or not. I would recommend that they give you a plan on how they want to spend those funds, because overall, there's a lot of pressure on the budget. Your salaries and benefits are 80.8%. That means that 1 month's worth of salary and benefits is around $9 million, $9 to $10 million worth of salaries and benefits. So that is a summary of, a comparison of how you closed and how the budget looks for the 18-19 school year.
Ms. Ramirez, are we providing resources to the site principals to be able to set plans for us and so forth?
What do you mean set plans?
I mean, we say, if they need more funds and everything, they know how to request more funds from us, or from you, actually?
If they know how to?
Yeah, because I'm sure it's some type of format, correct? That they have to.
What the current process is doing a budget transfer, and they just say they need it.
Well, what I'm saying is they need to justify it, correct?
Yeah, well,
So-
that's the proper way to do it, to
Okay.
justify it, also to bring it for board approval. Like I said, I can only change from one line to another. I cannot increase the budget because overall, the board has the authority to whether to deficit spend more than what we're approving today or possibly approve today. And so that is something that needs to come to you for approval. Mhm. Yeah. As it is right now, we're moving towards a time where discretionary funding is going to be non-existent. Your salaries and benefits are growing very
Much.
rapidly. And again, and you'll see at the last slide, one of my recommendations in how we can address the structural deficit that we are operating on. Mhm.
And that's why I go back to the training, to train our staff to be able to function with less in the future.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so now here's a summary of the reserves. And this is where I wanted to go back to Mr. Calderon's question about negotiations. So the fund balance at the end of 17-18 is going to be 17 million. At the end of 18-19, it's going to be 21. So overall, for 18-19, we are projecting a surplus of $4.2 million. Why do we have that big of a surplus if overall our budget increased by 5%? Because Governor Brown says 100% funding on LCAP. So instead of looking at that money and trying to spend it down this year, what we need to do is we need to save it in our reserves because we're going to need it in the upcoming years. Yes, we can't just look at those balances and try to spend it down. On the contrary, we got to be very mindful of saving for the future because you're not looking at year 2 and 3 right here, but year 2, right now you see a 12.9% as reserves. In year 2, that goes down to 9, and then in year 3, it goes down to 6. Why? Because Stirs and Purse is more expensive in the next 2 years. And that's why you need to be mindful of. In the components of ending fund balance, and I don't think that Calexico has seen this before, but for this closing, I assigned $3.8 million towards 1.8 towards negotiations, $1 million for roofing repairs, because the 200 that you saw as an increase, I didn't know about it until when it happened, that we can't ignore it anymore. Like the vehicles, we can't ignore them anymore. So that's why it's important that we assign funds in the reserves. And then $1 million towards textbooks. I don't know that it's enough for us, but it's something.
For what?
For textbooks. It's nothing, but it's something. It's better than nothing.
2 book adoptions.
No, not even one.
Huh?
Not
Well,
even
it's
one.
500,000, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, part of the ending fund balance is 20,000 on revolving. In inventory, we have 164,000, and then there were some prepaids, and the restricted balance also is in there. So overall, our fund balance is estimated to be $15.6 million. Again, that $15.6 million would only cover 1.5 months worth of salary and benefits. So if something was to happen, I don't know what could happen. Some natural disasters, some decline in enrollment. I don't know. They close borders. I don't know what they can do. You have 1.5 months worth of time to make some adjustments to the budget. The recommended percentage would be to have 2 or 3 months worth of expenditures. Right now, you only have 1.5 at the end of 18-19. So this is the last slide, and these are the final recommendations as we move forward with the fiscal issues at Calexico. I would recommend that we implement stronger internal controls. The credit card, we really need to take a look at it. We need to set up some restrictions on how we go about the credit card.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they make the charges before I see them. So it's circumventing the purchase order process.
Who's making charges?
Everyone. Most of, yeah, the charges are done, and that's the way it got set up. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's allowable expenditures for the most part. Yeah, well, it's allowable expenditures, but I don't get to see them until they're in the statement or they're already being charged.
So, can you give us examples of these credit card charges that you're not seeing?
Well,
before?
it's various things, and
Like-
in the
like
in the-
what?
The intent of the credit card was not to buy supplies. The intent of the credit card, as I understand it from my other experiences, I was not here when this got set up, but the intent of the credit card is to facilitate the delivery of services as far as lodging, registration, things that cannot be bought, through a PO system. But supplies, those should always go through the purchase order system, and we don't have that in place. And I needed to make sure that you understand that. As a board, you need to understand that we don't have that in place and that it needs to happen.
We say to buy, like, for instance, go buy some air conditioners, that's what you're talking about, or what?
No, they pay stuff from Amazon, they pay stuff from sites. I mean, everybody has their own card. Mhm.
But also, those things are within their budget, right?
They're within their budget.
The problem is that you're not reviewing it before it's approved.
But here's the problem, we hope that it's within their budget, but because it's outside the PO system, there's no way for me to check that before they buy it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So let's say there's a big purchase and they don't have enough funds, I don't get to know that until the item has already been purchased. I'm not saying that if something's being done incorrectly, it's just out of order.
Okay, but still, you could require that they get a PO.
And that's where I'm going. We need to set that up where they don't do the charge until they've gone through the PO process.
That's,
Yes.
so when you're saying, like, for instance, give an example, who has a credit card?
All the
Everybody.
administrators have one. I think all the administrators, and.
I got one.
And department staff, uh-huh.
When you go, for example, you have to go to, not Smart Final, but, Home Depot, right?
That's an open account.
It's strictly used for travel in my department, that's it.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so
Mhm.
not you.
Yeah, well, but
Well, you go through the, you go through the
Yeah,
PO
well, it's
process
just-
and stuff like
That's
that.
what it was set up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna use my experience. When I was traveling, I would apply for the funds that I'm gonna use and so forth. Then they would either cut me a check, and they couldn't, they would give me a credit card. And they already knew what I was gonna spend.
Yeah.
So
But you saying that.
I'm talking from experience. I mean, you have a credit card, you're gonna use it right away if you have it.
But
You
you're saying
understand what I'm
from
saying?
the sites, what are they using it on?
Supplies.
Yeah.
But they're not supposed to.
But then again, this is just a recommendation
Well,
to
I
have better internal
Well,
controls.
that's not what it was set for.
No, I don't know what it was set for. I don't know that there's restrictions. I'm just saying that as a recommendation, to prevent any kind of misusage,
Yeah, wow.
we do need to set up a procedure.
Was that what we applied about 4 or 5 years ago for those credit cards? Is that what she's talking about, those credit cards? No. Remember that we couldn't have credit, so we applied for, or we couldn't.
We have the Cal card.
That was different?
Mm-hmm. And again, this is just on the fiscal side of things and for fiscal preventive measures. We should have a procedure in place. I also recommend that we enforce bidding practices. I know that sometimes we have to go through emergency resolutions, but overall you would get better prices if you go through the bidding process. So that's the other part. And then implement the budget development process. So Mr. Calderon Jr., you asked, how does the site administrators ask for more money? Well, right now it's just, saying they need it and justifying it. But the best way to do it is to go through a budget development process where we all collectively make decisions as to how to better use the resources, instead of just, you know, being reactive. In preparing how to provide services with less funding. On utilizing resources more efficiently, there is something called performance budgeting, and that is based on metrics. Again, if whatever you're spending on has an impact on the academic achievement of students, then, you know, let's continue spending on it. But if something's not working, then why are we still spending money on it? And we don't have a process in place to make that analysis. And so that's something that we can look at. But then again,
I'm just smiling because, I mean, it's,
maybe it's radical thinking, but it has to be done because
it's not. It's common sense. It's not radical thinking. It's common sense because we know that year 2019, 2020, we're going to have some hard times.
Yes.
I know that. And I think everybody that's here knows that too.
Yes. And then the next one, adopt frugal practices. Sometimes, you know, I don't know, I'm very frugal myself personally, and sometimes I think there's a lot of things that we do out of comfort, out of convenience, but we're here in the service of educating our children. So let's just keep that in mind. And the next one is to identify base services. Again, if structural deficit means that we are providing more services than the revenue that we're receiving. So we need to really look at what is core and what is basic, and then try to see if there's things that we can eliminate, or maybe they're redundant. Maybe they're things that we're doing twice. I don't know. I programmatically, I don't know. I see it through budget. And then the last one, I mean, we all know this. We need to settle negotiations, because that's a big issue. And those are my final recommendations. And as you saw in the board report, October 12th will be my last day, but I'll be here for 2 more board meetings. So it's been a pleasure. So if you have any more questions, this is it for the closing and 1819 revise.
Well, I do have just a comment. Thank you for the information, and thank you not only for providing what's ahead of us, but a solution, how we can avoid
We really need to have those hard conversations. And I know that we want to provide all of the things and services to our students, and they deserve it, as well as the teachers and everybody that works here. We all deserve a lot of good things, but we just can't afford them all.
And I have something with my kids, and I'll tell you, when they ask for something, I usually ask them if it's a want or a need. And that's how everybody should do. And I'm going to tell you something. We went to Tustin, and everybody thinks it's Orange County. There's a lot of money. Well, there is $1 million homes there and everything. But they also have Title I schools there.
Yes.
And they have the same technology that we could have here. And you're right. We're here for the business of our kids. And if we're not, then we're doing an injustice to them.
Yes.
And thank you for being candid with us.
Yeah.
I hate that you're leaving, but at least you leave us with a platform that we should all look at, and then for a prosperous future that we have ahead of us. So.
Yeah, thank you. So with that, the recommendation is to approve.
Well, thank you so much. And on that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Castillo. All those in favor, please state aye.
One comment.
All right.
On the 4th page, you have increasing the high school supplies, 150,000. So the initial budget was 150,000? So now we're going to increase it another 150,000?
The reason why I did include it in there is because I went back to the established rates that Mrs. Randall set for the sites as far as discretionary. And going back there, when I prepared the budget for the high school, I looked at what she had spent before closing and on discretionary, and what was allocated to LCAP. Again, part of my my fiscal way of looking at budget is I just gotta make sure I present a balanced budget or closer to balance, and that we meet reserves. And looking at the rate, I was very off by the rate. When I did the calculation on how much to allocate to budget, I was off. Mrs. Randall had set up a rate of $200 per ADA for the high school, and I only said half of it. So yes, that's
Okay,
why I
So
included
this is a
it.
valid increase.
It is valid in the way that the rate was established. However, we still need to look at moving towards less discretionary, because the salaries and benefits are going up.
Right.
Yes, so,
Okay, thank you.
yes, thank you.
So there was a motion by myself, seconded by Mr. Castillo. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor, Romero, Calderon, Calderon Junior, Castillo, myself. L15, resolution proclaiming September as Attendance Awareness Month.
Motion to approve.
I'll second. Motion by Calderon Junior, seconded by myself. Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon Junior,
Yes.
Mr. Castillo. Myself, yes. Moving on to L16, resolution regarding disposition of surplus asset, non-asset kitchen equipment.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Calderon, second by Calderon Junior. Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon,
Yes.
Calderon Junior,
Yes.
Castillo. Myself, yes. Moving on to L17, resolution regarding California Energy Commission School Bus Replacement Grant Program.
Is this the IID grant, or what is it? Or just saying that we meeting regulations?
This is through the California Energy Commission School Plus Replacement Grant, and it's for the application. And for, these are the electrical buses.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Calderon Junior. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Oh, correct, it's a resolution. Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Calderon,
Yes.
Calderon Junior,
Yes.
Castillo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Resolution adopting the GAN limit for fiscal year 2018-2019.
I move we approve.
Second.
Motion by Romero, second by Castillo. Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Calderon,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Calderon Junior,
Yes.
Castillo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. With that said, we're gonna go to M, reconvene to earlier closed session. It is,
You want to extend the meeting? Yeah.
yeah, what's, before that, make a motion to extend the meeting at least for another hour,
Second that.
from 10 to 11. Seconded by Mr. Castillo. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All those in favor, Romero, Calderon, Calderon Junior, Castillo, myself, starting with them.